Hello, welcome to episode 4 of the Zombie Apocalypse podcast. Zombies are referring to the general populace that are unaware and in a deadened state. And apocalypse refers to the unveiling of the illusion, sort of that mindsets that enslave them in this state. And so we're unveiling that, we're lifting the veil in this podcast. And I guess we can plug our websites. I'll start. My name is Geri. My website is godislovetruthlife.com. I'll pass it to Jeff.
Hi, my name is Jeff. I still haven't made my website, but my YouTube channel is Decentralizing Mind Control.
And Darin.
So my name is Darin. My YouTube channel is called Dunning Team Kruger Force, and my username is Sovereign Cyborg 93.
Nice. And we have our returning guest, Curt, here as well. Awesome. And we're taking turns defining objective morality. Darin, would you like to take it away?
Yes. Objective morality under natural law is the notion that morality is governed by basic laws of the universe or nature, or you could say the laws of God, that right and wrong are not a social construct, and that the idea that it is erroneous, and that idea causes us to live in discord with natural law and is the source of most of society's problems. Objective morality is the belief that no humans have inherently any rights that others do not have. So we can't make a right a wrong, and we can't make a wrong into a right. And those are best expressed in two principles: the self-defense principle and the non-aggression principle. The non-aggression principle simply states if one is not engaging in harm to a sentient being, then what they're doing is by default a right. And the self-defense principle is that all sentient beings have the right to defend themselves against violence. Violence being the violation of their rights, such as theft, coercion, murder, rape, trespass, deception, and Geri, what
Assault.
am I missing? Assault. Correct. So essentially, you could boil it down to two words: don't steal, or keep your hands to yourself. Don't encroach on other people's rights or property, and don't infringe. And another tenet of natural law that is often a point of contention is that all rights are property rights. If I don't own my body, then I can't decide what happens to it. If I do own my body, I have a right to defend it. And by extension, property that I've lawfully acquired or not stolen from somebody, according to natural law, is mine. Doesn't mean I can buy an entire forest and then kick all the living beings out of it or dam up the river so nobody can drink water. But I do have a right to property. And so natural law is essentially that what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And it doesn't matter how I feel. And it doesn't matter if we unanimously form a consensus. It's irrelevant to the truth of natural law and objective morality.
Excellent.
I've already said I've already defined objective morality myself, but there's some things that I think I left out, and I'd like to add it now if I could find the words. Yeah, it's true. What's right is right. What's wrong is wrong, and like that is definitely an objective thing. It's not subjective. To understand how it's objective, like we really need to think about like the word right. It literally means correct, but correct as far as true or untrue is one meaning of it, but also it means like morally right, not morally wrong, and like the connection between correct or incorrect and morality. It comes, I need to think about like what morality is. Morality is it's consciousness and matter. Morality is the connection between matter and consciousness. If you think about what the universe is, like all the physical 3D things, the matter, space, time, energy, those are all measurable, detectable things. The one thing that's not directly detectable is consciousness, and consciousness is the whole point to the universe. All the matter and energy, space and time, without any consciousness to experience it, it wouldn't matter to anybody. Like you could call it matter, but it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't affect anything without any experiencer. So like these life forms, like things like matter that has life. It's animated because it takes actions. Animals are distinguished from plants because they're animated. They can take actions. Plants actually do take actions, but on such a slow speed, like the scale of time that we recognize, but we can't see them reacting. But even plants do take actions. But life all like makes actions. The conscious actions, it makes a decision, and these actions are the connection between the physical layer of reality and the non-physical, the mental layer of reality. You have thoughts first, and then you take an action according to your free will. You choose the action to take, and it has some effect on the things in this 3D world, and this effect that you have, like here's where it comes to morality. Like you could do like infinite types of actions, and a lot of them they're not going to affect any other living thing, but if it affects the property of a living thing, their body or something they own, then it actually matters to someone. The whole point of this existence is for life. Like if you haven't figured it out yet, like life is what the whole universe is about. It's the point of the whole universe. And think like the whole point of life is to keep on living, like growing, evolving, exploring, creating, and like things that continue that perpetuate the existence of life are what's good. Like what's good and bad has to be from the point of view of life. Life is what matters, and we're all part of the same life form. Like we're individuals, but we're all part of the same living earth. The earth is part of the same living universe. The like, and the universe is always gaining entropy. It's like the opposite of the life force. It's the force of death and chaos and contraction all the way down to nothing. Things that work towards death, on the scale of the whole universe, are things that are wrong. And now you could like define actions as actions that are good to life or bad to life, and if you I said before, if you just break a rock, it's not hurting anybody. But if someone owns that rock and they're caring for it, it's part of their property. It's part of them. If you hurt the rock that's someone's property, you're actually increasing entropy of the other life form that owns that. Their entire body of matter that makes up them, their physical, biological body, and all their possessions, it has some order. It's put in the order according to the will of the life form that owns it, and once the actions you choose have an effect of violating the free will of another life form, you're increasing entropy in the universe and like decreasing life in the whole universe. Like life forms are what has free will. The inanimate matter, it doesn't have a will. So you know a better way to define like morality, wrong and right, is wrong doesn't violate the free will. Right, I'm sorry, wrong violates free will. Right does not violate free will ever. So, like, that's why doing harm to someone's property is wrong. It's violating their free will. And you know, violating free will is it's decreasing life in the whole universe, working towards death of everything. You know, like I don't want to start rambling. I could always like bring up some more details in future podcasts. It's a very simple thing, but if you try to like explain it very thoroughly, it gets complicated. But I think it's important to explain it thoroughly. So some people might understand it, but they might have some questions. And like if you explain it thoroughly, it just answers everyone's question. But well, we could move on to some other topics specifically for this episode. You guys want to?
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to add to what you said. Yeah.
Or that.
You really brought it out to the macro level with these universal concepts. I would just add that, you know, the combining thought with right, to get right action, you need to combine thought with care. So the care is like an essential sort of ingredient in that. Yeah.
You know, I'd like to talk about all these different components, like maybe later in the podcast when we're talking about like the onlookers and like obligations versus rights. You know, it gets important to break down like you focus your free will on the things that you care about, and the actions that you choose, they're going to be effective based on, you know, the strategy that you choose, and also like the amount of effort and time you're willing to focus on taking that action. And the time and effort that correlates to the free will. Like the more, like, the stronger your will is, the more effort you have to apply. And to understand it objectively, it helps to think about things in a scientific way. And I know that like topics like this, they have to be understood by using both sides of the brain. It can't be purely intellectual. But I think objective things, like they can be described intellectually, and it's good to break them down into different things that we could almost make like an equation, make a proof of objective morality.
Yeah, I remember in Mark Passio's podcast, he was talking about how he was working on like a mathematical sort of equation to sort of show the correlation, like as morality increases on the aggregate, so does freedom, and the inverse being.
I heard that recently. Yeah, he wants to have it peer reviewed by like science journals and everything. And
yeah, I think it's a cool idea. Curt, do you have anything to add?
Not in particular, no.
Okay.
I think I might have neglected to mention one thing, and that is that objective morality under natural law applies to beings with the capacity to know right from wrong. So that's what differentiates objective morality under natural law from, let's say, the law of the jungle or survival of the fittest. So
It's important to bring that up
essentially,
because I think plants do have their own type of free will, but they don't have the capacity to understand right and wrong. And I didn't want to get like too in detail, but I'll bring it up now because I was trying to distinguish between organic matter and inorganic matter. Like, but honestly, I think there might be a chance that even subatomic particles themselves are alive and even conscious, and like the consciousness might be uh, displayed by like the position a particle could be. Um, it's it seems like it's random. It's dependent by probability, but it might be actually the free will of the particle to be in one of the potential places when it's observed. Like the way things work on a quantum scale might be an example of consciousness in things that we don't even recognize as life. I was gonna. Sorry, I kind of interjected what you were saying because I was gonna say something really quick and I went on for too long. But I hope I didn't make you lose your train of thought. If you want to continue, Darin.
oh no, you're good. Basically, yeah, that natural law is really something that applies to people with the ability to know right from wrong. Because if you think about it, um, a lower order being mostly um, goes by instinct. So, they can learn certain things, but a lot of it is like, birds make a nest, birds migrate, mosquitoes bite people. A mosquito doesn't have a choice. Like, there's no, like, they can't just pull up on a blood bank and go have a couple sips from somebody who donated blood. You know what I'm saying? Like, if they could and they had the capacity, like, maybe they would. Maybe they'd just go to a bird feeder outside a blood bank and, you know. So this applies to humans and higher life forms. Anything that can understand right from wrong, because unlike most organisms, most of our actions are a choice. We all have to eat, we all have to live somewhere, we all have to mate, but we actually decide how we do that, and we have the capacity for introspection and retrospection. So also natural law doesn't apply to an infant or somebody with a severe mental disability or someone who's a vegetable, right? So like, as a baby, it might be rude for me to wake up the family at 3 a.m, but it's not rude for an infant to do that. So it is our responsibility, though, to raise up those infants and our fellow human beings with knowledge that there is an objective morality. So yeah, I mean, we are kind of unique in the fact that we can be cognizant of how our actions affect others.
Yeah,
So
I think
a law isn't going to destroy
laws are
the
universal.
ecosystem. We can destroy ecosystems. Most other animals have a certain niche, and they don't really go outside of that. So we have the capacity, so we also have the responsibility.
Right.
Yeah, laws are universal. They exist like everywhere in the universe. But the natural laws regarding morality, they only apply to things that morality applies to. And yeah, if you can't understand the difference between right and wrong, you're not making this conscious choice. And morality doesn't apply uh, to lower level life forms. But some advanced individual from the dog species or the crow species or dolphin or something might actually have some understanding. And I think as soon as they have an understanding of right and wrong, natural the laws that that govern morality do apply to their choices.
Sure. Yeah, when a being obtains that capacity, then yes. And I would say that a lot of intelligent creatures, or even not so intelligent creatures, know on a basic level, like some right from wrong. I mean, they know that they don't like suffering being inflicted upon them, right? So, I mean, I've seen, like, my dog, for example, is a larger dog. The first time she saw a cat, she didn't really want to like maul it or anything. She just looked at it like, oh, what's this little thing? But if that same, if she met that same cat in another context, jumping in the backyard, climbing over the fence, she might attack it. I guess, but in the context she was in, it was a peaceful context. And, that's one thing that, unless they're abused, animals don't really seek out humans or other beings to attack that are
But
not for food.
animals do all share the ecosystem together, and if you have species that are predatory and they're eating each other, it's less efficient than species that are symbiotic. Like they'll probably all get to have longer
Well,
lifespans if they're symbiotic instead of
I
predatory. Like
think
they
you might
do
say,
the cause and effect and the consequences of the actions do still apply to them. They just don't have the ability to choose.
Kurt, you
Kurt,
were saying something?
just I think you
Sorry,
might
Kurt.
be amazed how many of the animals out here will eat meat when it's available to them. The amount
Oh
of
yeah,
you can find,
deers catch baby birds, and like if you feed a steak to a deer, they'll eat it. And
or
yeah,
if they
I've seen,
find something that's dead very recently and hasn't started to rot, they'll take free protein when it's available. Even
that's kind of like me. I think I mentioned before.
squirrels. What?
I'm a vegan shopper, but I still eat meat when people share it with me.
Huh.
Yeah, I've seen a video of a squirrel eating a chipmunk.
It's kind of a Buddhist idea, isn't it?
yeah, it's common.
Uh,
I
it's
know Buddhists aren't supposed to allow an animal to be killed for them. So, like, if a famous Buddhist priest goes to a town, he's not supposed to let them kill a cow to have a feast for him.
Yeah, I'm just applying the non-aggression principle to my fellow living beings.
Right.
I don't want to do animal abuse. I don't think they're property and they should be owned, and I don't want to contribute to that with shopping. I almost became totally vegan because I learned like you are actually contributing to killing the animals, just
Yeah.
with the supply and demand. So I just don't want to do that. But like if it's already been done and I'm not causing any harm by eating something, I'm just stopping it from going to waste. Like I don't think I am like violating the non-aggression principle. So yeah, Buddhism probably came up with it for the same reason.
More or
But
less, yes. That's why I thought it was as relevant as it was.
yeah, it's in line with the non-aggression principle. Like a lot
Right.
of these traditions are in line with each other.
Yeah, all kinds of animals will take protein when they can. You can find a video of squirrels raiding birds' nests and eating the chicks. And like, it is what it is, and a lot of
Squirrels and crows, they're both normally vegetarian, but like when their property when their territory overlaps, they fight for territory, and when they get hungry, they do kill and eat each other.
that's like I always find it kind of amazing how much people don't understand how ruthless nature really is. I think it speaks to why the early Gnostics thought the God of the world was as cruel as he was because of how much of that you have out here. Because the overwhelming majority of animals out there, even if they're mostly designed for a plant-based diet, they will eat meat if they can. Like they're not going to pass that up, and it's a constant churning of death and suffering out there, right?
I think I mentioned this theory in another podcast, but I think like the rest of biological life on this planet and nature is so ruthless because of us. I think we're a big influence on them, since we are the only species where most of us have the intellectual ability to understand right from wrong, and we can like make the choice. Do we want to do right or wrong? Like I think I think our consciousness has like a bigger influence on the whole consciousness of the planet. Like I think we have more consciousness than lower level life forms that don't have that ability to tell right and wrong. And you know the natural world probably wouldn't be so brutal if we weren't so brutal. I think it's going to go whichever way humans go. I think we're the most influential species on the planet because of our level of consciousness. But yeah, it is very, very brutal. But I think that's the condition of it, not the nature of biological life.
That's what makes us
Because
different. I don't know if most
because
biological
symbiosis
life.
is so much more efficient than predation. Like it's good for life uh, to be less brutal. Like it's good for everybody. So like since life wants to evolve to be more efficient and more successful in everything, I think the like a more highly evolved thing would be symbiotic instead of predatory. So I think that the nature of biological life is to evolve into like a less brutal form. Sorry, Darin, what are you saying?
I don't know if most biological life, even in the rainforest or in the desert, considers reality or nature to be brutal. I don't think the penguin getting eaten by the sea lion
No, it just is.
ever thought, yeah, they just are.
Yeah.
And
I think it probably feels brutal when you're being eaten, like whoever you are.
yeah,
The
but
raw
they don't
emotion
think
is
about it.
there,
They're
but they're
just
not
feeling it.
philosophizing about it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Right.
And they don't spend their whole lives in terror either. You know what I mean? Like they may have momentary adrenaline rushes, but they're also not. They're not even terrified by the existence of something that's going to eat them. And to be honest, that might still be better than dying of starvation because they made it to old age anyway. You know what I mean? So, but I feel like that's what makes us different. And one thing that is interesting is most intelligent creatures are predators or omnivores. That's not 100% of the case, but whales eat plankton and shrimp,
squid,
prawns, squids. Um, there, there,
seals,
there is, dolphins, orcas hunt, crows, ravens.
otters.
Yeah. So, like, what I think is you have your single celled
Predation is
organism.
more efficient for the predator itself, but like if you look at the big picture, we're all part of the
There
planet.
is a there is yes, because the higher you up on the food chain, the more sensitive you are to imbalance in that food chain. Like predators are the first ones to go extinct when there's an environmental crisis, like a toxin, because toxins move up the food chain. The like um, eventually the prey animals get affected too, but it's usually the predators that are also at the top. Their balance is more delicate. And what's interesting is that like in the in the Vedic system and the Eastern systems of spirituality, the idea is that the soul moves from lower species to higher species until they get to the point of a human being. Then at that point, due to their karma, they can incarnate and reincarnate into lower life forms,
Yeah,
other human
plants are the
lives,
ultimate.
and higher life forms. So essentially, once you get to a point where you're the top physical creature in the food chain, you can actually exit that whole predator and prey dynamic and be free. That's why the liberal arts are called the liberal arts. The understanding the trivium and the quadrivium are basically like just like our capacity for understanding morality and free will and introspection and noticing patterns differentiates humans from the rest of creation. The liberal arts are what uh, allows a human to be free versus a slave to our base instincts. So it is a unique privilege of human beings, and it was previously only reserved for monastics and philosophers, and basically people who either had the good fortune or the money in order to not slave away in the field all day. They got to study philosophy, they got to study classics. They had to be somehow able to spend that time studying those things, and it was those people that invented the printing press, invented medical surgery techniques, and we're at a unique point in human history to where there's a public library in every municipality in the United States, and I would say most countries in the world. We have the internet. Man, I used to skip school, smoke a joint, and go to the public library, read whatever the fuck I want to read. I'd go to the Dewey Decimal System and I'd look up metaphysics and philosophy, and I would sit there and read all day. And then
You didn't like school because you like to learn, right?
Right. And when it was time for school to get out, I'd go pick up my friends from school and pretend like I was there the whole day and come home on time. Yeah. And I would get accused of cheating a lot too because I wouldn't show up to class and I wouldn't do homework, but I would get 97, 94% on the tests and the finals because what do I need to do homework for? I mean, I was there for the lecture or I went through the book. So, yes, I hated school because I like learning. But yeah, so this is the liberal arts, philosophy, and spirituality. Understanding the laws of nature will get you to the point where you realize there's an underlying cause, a prime mover, a generative principle. So basically, once we have this capacity to understand, then it's actually our responsibility to act with that understanding. And if we don't, no one's going to force us, not even God, because the laws don't affect the law. The laws affect the outcomes and the being subject to those laws. So we're not going to hurt God by violating the rights of other human beings. You could say we do in a sense because we are all connected.
I think when we hurt each other, God is hurting itself.
It'll balance out eventually, but we're not going to like the way it balances out, essentially. And it doesn't have to be difficult. The laws are there for our own benefit.
Yeah, so much was discussed just now. Going back to, what the sort of food chain that we're seeing in the animal kingdom, I do wonder what it would be like if humanity chose to live morally, if there would be an effect in the natural world. It's hard to know, right? Because we've always...
It would have to be very gradual. You're not gonna see lions just suddenly start foraging for roots the next day or anything, right?
Sure. Yeah, but it's I mean, we can't prove that that's going to happen because we haven't had that yet. Yeah. where
skeptical
humanity's
of that
moral. Yeah.
personally. I that's I'm not on the side of veganism. I'm not opposed to people who are. It's not a take I personally subscribe to. And part of that, part of it is, I guess you could call indoctrination, because I grew up with my grandparents and my relatives raising cattle. Um, my sisters both have chickens and rabbits and things. It's a normal part of my life, right? Um, but to that end, you see how brutal they are to each other, and they're not being moralistic about it. They're usually not it's not cruelty. It's just they're being animals. This is what they do to each other. Sometimes the chickens will all just decide to chase one around and pull its feathers out and peck at it till it dies. And the only thing you can really do is separate that one chicken, wait till it heals back enough that it can't show that it was being abused, and try to mix it in with a different lot of chickens and hope they get along. Like there's only so much you can do to try to fix that. And
I don't.
in a way, because I kind of see animals as being so heavily ruled by instinct, I consider us to have obligations towards them regarding how they live and how they die. But I don't think we have to completely abstain from like hunting and fishing and farming. But when you're keeping livestock, you are completely responsible for that animal's life, right? You're responsible for its living conditions, its safety, its whole experience, and you actually have to take accountability for that. You have an obligation there. Whereas if you had left it alone in the woods, you wouldn't.
What do you think about that, Curt? How it translates to the repercussions on the scale of human society? For example, if you were to take a frontier culture from, let's say, Canada.
Can I describe exactly?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking about like the horrors of factory farming, one of the worst things about it is that when they're showing like the chickens, you have all these tiny, tiny little boxes that barely fit the chicken, and they're all just stacked on each other like shelves, right? One on top of each other, row after row. They can't really move, they can't do anything, they're just, well, every time I drive towards a major city and I see all of those high-rise buildings that are all these tiny little concrete boxes with little lights, all I can see is the macro version of the micro of the
See,
factory.
it's exactly as above, so below. See, like the dark occultists, like Bill Gates, the royal families, the Rothschilds, and whoever the ones are that we don't know who they are. Like they think of us as their property, and because of that, they want to get people out of rural areas, get everyone living in big cities, stacked up in these high-rise apartments, similar to the chickens in cages. It's all because they think we're property, and they justify thinking of us as property. Kind of another reminder about the name of the podcast. Like why it's called zombies is the dark occultists call the uninitiated the dead because they don't understand the objective morality. They think morality is subjective, and some humans are fit to rule other humans and decide what's right and wrong. That they don't believe that. They know that we believe that, and because of that, they consider us the dead, a lower form of consciousness, a different species. They even think they're like ascended above normal humans, and because we're a lower form species with a lower level consciousness, they justify owning us and doing what they will to us, and causing our chaos. So their order can come out of our chaos. And we're doing the exact same things to animals. We justify it because they don't know what's right and wrong. They're a lower level consciousness. Several humans, the ones who promote the slaughterhouses and the whole the livestock ownership industry, they have the same exact point of view towards the animals that the dark occultists have towards the masses. And because we recognize like this universe is made out of patterns, like highlighted by the Hermetic principles, like one of them that I keep recognizing everywhere I look is as above, so below. Like that's why like no, I I can't justify like humans owning animals because I also like I assert that no one can own me. I'm free. Like Bill Gates or a royal family or whoever like does not own me if they think they do. Like I don't know. Like how do I have the right to assert that if I want to own somebody else? But I think knowing how to fish in case you need to, you could yeah, it's like you're more prepared to survive if you know that and like
Well, and I suppose the way I see it is there's a world of difference between having a chicken locked in a tiny box it can't move or get out of, where all it can do is eat and drink, and it's just stuck there 24/7.
but still you're deciding whether he gets to live in the tiny box or he gets to be free range. It's the same situation as Bill Gates is deciding like which people get to live in the country or the city.
Decides to kill other animals. I'm not against being a predatory animal. My front teeth are blades for a reason. That doesn't mean I'm approving factory farming because that's horrific. However, if you compare the quality of life that a chicken that is raised free range has, where it has, a large shady yard where it gets to run around and chase the other chickens and peck at bugs.
Maybe even better than out in nature. I acknowledge that.
And I've seen what happens to the birds out in nature repeatedly because I spent 5 years walking through the woods for a living. I know what happens to them. It's frequently not pleasant. Frequently they get some kind of injury that they're not going to heal from, and they spend a very long time suffering before something predatory stumbles along and puts them out of their misery.
And the chickens can be raised just for the eggs, and some eggs are.
Does, and she doesn't get rid of the old ones when they stop laying. She just kind of keeps them around. But I think harvesting eggs can be done without violating the non-aggression principle. Like some people have chickens that are free to fly away, but they return to their coop at night because they know it's a safe place, and they get locked in there to be protected from coyotes. And they lay more eggs than can hatch and can be fertilized, and they're going to go to waste if the people don't eat them, and they might as well eat them. Like it's a symbiotic relationship at that point. You're not being a predator. My general stance is that if you're going to keep an animal, you should be providing it a life that is better than what it would have in the wild.
Also I heard a alligator farming industry procedure that made me think like, I cannot really criticize like what they're doing. Like in a way, I guess to some individual alligator, let me just like tell you the scenario. Like they found a statistic that like more than 50% of alligator eggs get eaten by predators, and they never get to hatch to become alligators. Like when they're an egg or when they're like a baby alligator, like I think 75% of them never reach adulthood. So these people who are doing this industry, they go find these batches of alligator eggs, and they collect them and they incubate them, and 100% of them hatch, and 100% of them grow to adulthood on the farm, and then like they only sell like 25% and release the 75%. So like 75% get to make it to adulthood, and if the humans didn't catch those eggs, 25% of them would make it to adulthood. So by being like captured and raised to adulthood in captivity before they're released, like their chances of getting eaten are reduced. but still, like the humans are choosing which ones get eaten, which ones don't. Like it would have
Yes,
been random. Some other predator would choose that if they were in the wild. So it's
and
I've got kind of mixed feelings about it. I kind of think that one's ethical. Like
that's I
I,
kind
I,
of
I would probably buy meat from them if I, huh?
uh, I said I kind of approach these things case by case, right? Like in the Great Lakes right now, I know, and I believe a bunch of places in the U.S. If you're a sport fisher, I think it's white perch. They ask you to not throw back in the water, even if you don't want to eat it, because they're semi-invasive, and a lot of their diet is eating other fish's eggs. So they fight out and basically drown out the other species just by constantly going after their eggs, and it destroys ecosystems.
I thought of that too. I was thinking about fishing for Asian carp because they destroy a lot of ecosystems.
Yeah.
But then like I thought about it. Like they're considered invasive because we consider them invasive because
Well,
like
we messed
well,
up and we brought him here.
yeah, we messed up and brought them here, but like we're just another species. They ended up here. From their point of view, they're just another species trying to live. And like, what's gonna happen if they like outcompete these other species? Like, the other species will go extinct. But like, who are we to say like which species gets to prevail and which doesn't? Like, yeah, I see the point of view about like how it could be considered ethical, but I don't know. I kind of have. I'm like undecided about like
Yeah,
how to consider that with those invasive species. Like I kind of think maybe just like let them do what they do and let like the ecosystem evolve. Like don't violate the non-aggression principle just to tweak the ecosystem and make it like according to our own design.
Go ahead, Curt.
oh, I was just thinking, I'm not sure if carp are still on the invasive species list. I thought they were brought
Asian
down.
carp, I think, are. Or I haven't heard about them
Yeah,
for a few years.
yeah. I thought they'd been taken off it, that they'd kind of found an equilibrium.
That's
Hmm.
good.
But sorry, what were you gonna say, Jared?
Yeah, I think again, like if we look to the effects that are being observed in the natural kingdom to continue to justify harm to sentient beings, we run a slippery slope of just continuing the condition we find ourselves in, right? So, but it's like, it's again difficult to prove because humanity has been in this condition for millennia. So I can't prove that once we as humans on the aggregate decide to be moral in our eating habits, then that will transfer to the natural kingdom. I think it would, but I can't prove that because we've never had that experience yet.
The way I think it would work is like the collective subconscious for each species. I think that's been proven. I think there's one for the whole planet as well. But yeah, that's yet to be proven. And then like the consciousness, whether it's subconscious or conscious part of the consciousness, it has been proven to affect genetic evolution in some way, as well as DNA, or affect the way DNA
Well, yeah,
writes
exactly. And
evolution.
like, if you look at DNA, like the difference between like us and a chimpanzee is like, what, 1% or something. Like this line that we create as humans to justify suffering of other beings by virtue of our human, features, or even this idea of like holistic intellect, as Darin mentioned earlier. Like you can have an intellectual disability. Does that make you less of a human? I have a son that has an intellectual disability. He's not less human just because of that. And there could be a intelligent signing gorilla that could potentially test higher on an IQ test or whatever, and that doesn't make that gorilla less animalistic either. Like I feel like that we just create these like these binaries in our heads to justify evil,
Social
including
Darwinism.
yeah, like we would, during overt slavery, they would, refer to Black people as, animals to justify the overt slavery system, right? Like we see this sort of like mentality of like othering the other, that creates, and I mean, again, like I think for me, like just checking in with my heart and having had animal companions in my life. I don't like to call them pets, or I don't like to think of myself as an owner of them, but I having stewarded animals in my life, like it's difficult for me to justify eating them.
What do you think about the origins of anthropology and this idea? Have you heard of the multiple Adam theory? So
No,
at one point, and this was interesting because this kind of theory was
I
popular
heard
with
a theory
Charles
Adam and Eve
Darwin.
were in Ethiopia. I heard another theory they're in Israel.
Well,
But
there's that, but what I'm saying is that around the time of possibly a little bit before, but also during the lifetime of Charles Darwin and his cousin Francis Galton, and later on Margaret Sanger, um, they had this theory that um, all white people were descended from a white Adam and Eve, but black people and Native Americans and Asians, they had their own Adam and Eve. So we really weren't the same species, and that's what they used to justify treating other races cruelly. Now there was always this like colloquial idea of race, as in like, there's a race of people from the north, or there's a race of people that live. It basically meant nation, an ethnic group, right? So, but the modern pseudoscientific notion of race, um, instead of just mapping like genotypes and, let's say, ancestral lines, it was that a little bit, but instead of simply studying origins and genetics and, let's say, the light aspects of anthropology, what it was used for was justification. Like, this group of people has this IQ, this group of people has this one. If you measure their head, see, they're not a person. They don't have rights because they got these proportions. And that was literally like the scientific way of eugenicists justifying their theories. And one of that was, well, look, this person has a disability. They're absolutely miserable. Like, it's actually more humane to like euthanize them. I mean,
we're
that
doing that right now.
we're doing that right now. Yes.
yeah, in Canada, I heard like
Yeah, and
if you
people
if
think, well,
you
this
if you're
baby's gonna
depressed, is it true they
I'm not
pressure
going
you
to
to?
graduate college, so I should just abort it. It's the right thing to do. It's compassionate. It's my body. This baby's going to grow up poor. Can't do that. What did people, I mean, like, you think people were just going to live in a cave and eat little scraps of meat that they find? No, weren't they all just aborting their babies too? What do you mean? We got to just raise children and, like, without a college degree? No, no, no. Eugenics. Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger, eugenics. Canada's healthcare system, Curt, I heard they've approved it for anorexia, mental retardation, mental illness. They're trying to get it.
Physical disabilities, yeah.
Even depression, yeah.
Blindness, right?
Yep.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal.
It's horrific.
Essentially, it's to save money. Like, I saved 15% on healthcare by killing all the sick people. Instead
Right.
of Geico, I just.
And look, the number of healthy people in the country will be going up, so you can claim it's a functioning health policy because all the unhealthy people are dead.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. 99% of Canadians are now healthy because the
Big
rest of
Canada healthy, eh?
But that got dark.
Yeah. Well, that's the way it is. I mean, Bill Gates said, what? Unfortunately, there's too many people on the planet, but through reproductive health care and vaccines, we can,
Yeah, we can reduce it by like 15 to 20.
if we're lucky, he said. Yeah.
Back in like 2016.
Yeah, and then also if we just
Literally chills.
genetically manipulate the mosquitoes so that they have offspring that are not capable of reproducing, then we can get rid of malaria. Like, fuck all the fishes and the frogs and the tadpoles, you know. That's how Bill Gates wants to cure malaria. That we just get rid of 80 or 90% of the world's mosquitoes. I mean, people are actually doing that. Instead of making sure everybody has access to a $2 bottle of like medicine, like hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin. No. Don't give them medicine. Don't give them mosquito nets. Don't raise their quality of living. Actually, just genetically modify mosquitoes so that their population goes down. And then when the frogs die off and the fish die off, these people will be like starving again. And then you can offer them more abortions like Bill Gates loves to do. And then you can offer them infant formula so that they don't breastfeed. And then they mix that formula with the dirty groundwater and then they die of dysentery. And you just keep controlling them, and then they'll wait for the UN to drop some food off. And then the blue helmets will colonize their land. And I mean, this is this demented idea that fucking scientism has the right to say who lives and who dies.
It's easier to control us if there's less of us to rebel, and also as above, so below. We're following the model of like lower level species that have centralized authority, like the ants and the bees. They have like the queen and the drones that reproduce, and everyone else becomes sterilized by their conditioning or sometimes by evolution, but like there's only a couple who breed, and the rest are just there simply to serve the ones who reproduce and make the decisions. They might not make complex decisions as insects, but still, like the queen makes some more decisions than like the servants.
So, I really want to make the point regarding what Darin was saying about these people who've been kept in absolute poverty and abused constantly, because it's something I find when I'm going through looking around online is a lot of jokes about why these people haven't built anything, why they don't have a thriving society, and how clearly they're lower because of that. Like, well, what have you built then? And while a lot of the tensions that are cooking off right now regarding the illegal aliens in the US is happening, and in Europe, it's one thing to object to it because no one has a right to invade your home, but a lot of these people have no concept of the policies that have been used to absolutely destroy these continents for, God, longer than I've been alive, longer than my parents have been alive. So, like, none of this is natural. It was completely artificially created. And trying to get people to see that sort of board game level of it is really difficult.
Yeah, people think they have a right to object to immigrants moving in because they're defending their home, but there needs to be a distinguishment between private property and not property. There's no such thing as public property. Like the city borders or country borders are imaginary lines made to control people. Talk about that for a moment. I know cities are being like totally destroyed by having tons of like immigrants move in, but like it's not because like the government is allowing them to move in. Like the government
No, it's
shouldn't
worse than
stop them from moving in. No, the government is causing them to move in, not allowing them.
exactly.
It's not natural immigration. Like all these people wouldn't be coming to all these cities without the government like paying them and giving them incentives. And
Exactly.
like if all of
See,
us are saying like, no, you need to defend our borders, we want to have government as the solution. You need to stop these people from coming in. What they're going to do is be like, okay, you like borders? There's going to be a border on your neighborhood, and it's going to be a 15-minute city. You're going to have a barcode if you want to leave your neighborhood, and you're going to have all kinds of vaccines in order to get this barcode. And you can't have like a social media that says anything contrary to like our narrative. Like that's going to be the see they're conditioning us to want borders so they could give us borders and tell us that they're giving us what we want. Like there should not be any rule of migration. People should be able to freely travel across like all of these borders because they're not true property. We don't collectively own a whole continent or a whole piece of a continent. That's nonsense. Like there's no collective ownership. Like ownership means there's one individual that has the sole decision over what happens to the property. Like there's private property. There's not this public property that yeah, like it's wrong to restrict immigration, but also like it's wrong to like force this immigration. Like U.S. citizens, most of us don't want to disarm other U.S. citizens, but like it seems like the UN and George Soros and the society engineers are trying to recruit people from all over the world who would be willing to arm U.S. citizens and say that they're migrants who need to take refuge. And pretty soon they're probably going to be wearing UN uniforms and knocking on our doors. But
well, why do these people want to come to this country? I think that's what Curt was getting at, right?
Yeah.
Because they're being paid to.
Because
Exactly.
government. I mean, the
government gives incentives.
There's no reason objectively that living in the Philippines or living in Kenya or living in India should be any worse than it is living here.
Government is making the other places bad. And
Yes.
like all these governments are part of the same big government, the United Nations,
Right.
which is part of the same big like slave infrastructure with the religion and the banking systems as well.
You're already living in the Hunger Games society. The existence of a new
You just got to
world
zoom
order,
out to recognize it.
but the existence of a new world order requires that there was already an old world order. Like you've never been free. They're just kind of trying to change what the control system is a little, like the 1.1 release. That's all it is.
If we feel like we have a choice and that we're all like we all get a vote, right? So that means it's our choice. I mean, that's what they're trying to make us believe. That, our democracy, we gotta preserve our democracy. What the hell is democracy? It's tyranny of the majority. It's mob rule. I mean, I don't give a shit if
I hate my neighbor because they chose the wrong master.
Everybody decides I have to do one thing. I don't have to do it. I don't care if 8 billion people say that, I can't say what I want. I can still say what I want. What's right is right. What's wrong is wrong. And we're truth and morality are not based on a consensus. There is no moral legitimate to democracy whatsoever. In fact, honestly, a monarchy may actually be less violent than the democracy we have, because I don't recall living in a monarchy. Okay, I don't know what it's like, but I assume as long as the king or the landlord gets the money they're expecting, they don't give a flying fuck if the peasants don't cut their lawn. They don't care what religion the people are to an extent. I believe what we're dealing with now is orders
do
of
care if
magnitude
they're
worse than
See,
under
the
King
thing is, the
George the
people
Third.
don't like being owned, and because of that, they're less productive. And the king never gets all the money that he wants to get. And you see what happens in
Yeah,
like
but I
North
think
Korea is
we deal with a lot
it's called
more than
communism,
the
but
American
but
colonists.
the end goal of communism and Nazism is monarchy. So even though it's called communism, they reach the end stage. And Kim Jong Un pretty much is a monarch, a dictator. So
Right.
yeah,
The
it's
monarch
poverty
doesn't.
for everybody because he's not
The
getting what he
monarchs and
wants.
the kings, they don't lie to the people and tell them like this is your choice, like this is for your own good. It's kind of like I'm the king, this is where it's at. Whereas in democracy, we have this bullshit lie that we believe that, like, one, it's necessary, two, we have a choice, and three, we have to fucking obey it anyway.
Yeah,
And
they
so
want to stop lying to us. Uh,
that's where the
the real
dissonance comes
society
from.
engineers, several of them want to come out in the open and say you
Yep.
don't have a choice. Like you don't get to vote anymore. Like
They're
just
afraid we
do
will
what we say, or we're going to
resist.
kill you.
They're afraid we'll resist because, but some of them don't care. Um, it like for example, like with this presidential election coming up, the danger is that if Trump wins, people will think everything's fine because Trump won.
Yeah.
And then if Harris wins, people will think, oh, everything's fine because Trump didn't get to become president. We're perpetuating this cycle. And the bottom line is it doesn't matter if it takes 4, 16, or 32 years. They're still going to chip away our rights, make us eat shit, and tell us to like it. That's all that's going to happen incrementally forever. I mean, there's been kings for the last several millennia. There's always going to be rulers in the future. Doesn't matter what you call them. And the problem is that with democracy, the reason why democracy is so insidious is that it it provides the illusion of choice. And if okay, so Jeff, if all
It
your
catches
friends are
people who
smoking,
normally would reject government.
if
It
all your
yeah,
friends are smoking crack and they want you to smoke crack, are you going to smoke crack? Probably not. But what if they vote and 7 out of the 10 of your friends vote to smoke crack? If you don't smoke crack, now they have a right to put you in a cage and force you to smoke crack because it's democracy. See? So it doesn't matter if you want to do it, you know? Like if all your friends say, "Look, bro, like you can't eat meat on Mondays."
yeah, it's the same thing
What?
it's still like people ruling other people, but instead of that's not unique to democracy. Instead of like
It's peer pressure.
the
It's
majority
peer
being
pressure
able
at
to
gunpoint.
dictate what you do, like the king could dictate what you do. The king could say you have to smoke crack if he wants you to smoke crack.
Yeah, but then at least you know your place and you know the solution.
Correct.
Yeah, I love this conversation. Like, in our book club for the ARC, which is for those that are not familiar, a hard drive that you send into Mark Passio, and he gives you back 2 terabytes of audiobooks, books, and videos, etc. That will help your awakening process. Yeah, so we're reading. We read Larkin Rose's Most Dangerous Superstition, and in that he described, and I agree, that democracy is the perfect evil because it's so fucking insidious how people choose, like, oh, this handcuff or that handcuff, right? It's just
Well-
so insidious. Yeah.
And to describe how perfectly that control system is hidden, I'll have conversations with people where they're complaining about how tyrannical and overreaching the governments become, and then I'll hear them look across after looking across the street, start complaining about the neighbor's lawn and saying that they should call the city on them.
Yeah,
You literally don't
I see
see
what you're
it.
saying.
Yeah.
In a way, democracy is more dangerous than monarchy because you could say
Because people
monarchy is
use
like
it.
it's like 100 on the scale of tyranny, and democracy is maybe like 90 on the scale of tyranny. But but monarchy appears to be 100 on the scale of tyranny, but democracy appears to be like 1 on the scale of tyranny. So like people don't recognize it as a threat, and they don't defend themselves against it. They don't reject it. It's something that like people who would know better to like not participate in tyranny do participate with because they don't recognize it for the tyranny that it is.
There's been many times that a king has decided to fuck off when the people that he's ruling are really upset. That's happened in Spain. It's happened in a lot of countries around the world. That when the government, the king, the monarch goes too far and passes an oppressive rule, there are riots. Some of his men,
Yeah, it's self-preservation because sometimes they get beheaded too.
he says, exactly, and he says, you know what? Okay, I've heard my people. I've spoken to the bishops, and they said, they prayed for me, and I made a mistake, and I'm going to back off. But when have you heard of a democracy defunding itself or reducing its power in any way due to backlash? If
Plus
anything,
one.
it increases it in a
Yeah.
Yeah.
harmonic resonance frequency. Like the more you push back against democracy intensifies.
Well, look at all these dangerous terrorists pushing back against the government. We need more jackbooted thugs, don't we?
Yep.
Yeah. Like, oh man, the propaganda spread about the Ottawa convoy was just having been there on the ground, seeing it, being part of the convoy in real time, and getting to go home. Because I was staying with an old army buddy, so I wasn't with the trucks at night. I'd get up at like 6 in the morning, go back down to the protest, and then I'd go back to my buddy's place and crash for the night back and forth. But with that, I'd be on my computer checking what the news was saying about it and stuff at night, and they were running articles claiming that people from the convoy were like stealing food from local homeless shelters and crap. Meanwhile, I was in Ottawa every weekend or almost every weekend while I was in the army, so I've seen how rough that place is to the homeless, right? And while the convoy was there, you couldn't go 50 feet down the street without someone offering you a bowl of soup or hot chocolate or asking if you want a burger,
That's so
or
nice.
people were donating like old hand-me-down like socks and gloves and things. And if there was a homeless person walking by who didn't have good gloves, they'd just get them better ones. And like they've never been better taken care of than when the convoy was there.
I'm really proud of Canada for doing that. You know what I mean? Like that's amazing, dude. And as much as like obviously Canada has like way more tyrannical laws right now when it comes to speech and weapons ownership. But one thing that I never expected was for Canada to come out and the people actually do something so courageous and bold. And I think the United States should have done that too. And we really fucking bitched out because of our fucking sports ball and fucking video games and circle jerk television.
Well, a lot of people fell for the J6 psyop,
Yeah.
the whole white hats.
Yeah, completely
TV
unarmed
thing.
revolution. That happens all the
Yeah.
time, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
In Russia, they were just like, rabble, rabble. And they just said words, Fidel Castro, he just came out and said some fucking words, took a dookie on the desk, and then Cuba was his, right? Yeah. Such a fucking fuck job. And then, you know what? The people that actually thought, because obviously some people did, the people that thought, yeah, oh, we just go and flip a couple tables in Congress. Like, the vote is so important, but then the deep state and the government thwarted our vote. So the best way to overcome tyranny that makes our vote irrelevant is to go not certify the votes. I mean, how stupid can you be? Like, if someone has the power to like screw up the vote count, then why does not certifying the vote count? I mean, for
Right.
people who thought their votes didn't matter, they really cared a lot about the votes. It's so fucking dumb. It collapsed in on itself. Like, you're cheating, therefore I want to recount. Or what?
Yeah.
Hey, if you're counting cards, or you're cheating in a game, and I just get up and I don't play. I don't like try to force everybody to decide the game in my favor.
Exactly. Yeah, like literally, metaphorically, but also literally, they took what could have been an actual resistance and funneled it through government.
Yeah, it was just all, oh, look at the Capitol. Ah, my ritual, but my ritual. Seriously.
I know.
They could have just all walked away and said, I guess our votes don't matter.
I've had a very tumultuous relationship with Alex Jones because I never watched his content prior to COVID. I only knew him from like the remix of the Gay Frogs song. But then I found out about him while I was getting out of the army and I was trying to research the Rona. And of course, he had like COVID land and stuff like that out. So I ended up getting to his work. And as I've kept going down all these different rabbit holes and educating myself more, I can't stand to listen to the guy anymore.
His earlier work is better.
Right.
Is
like,
it because he's just infotainment at this point?
I'm not sure if it's just that. I almost wonder if he's actually bought and paid for. Because it's just
well.
new thing, and political theater. Listen
That's
to
where
the
the
new
money
thing,
comes
happen,
in.
new thing. Right. And whether it's that he sold out because someone bribed him, or whether he sold out and that he got so fixated on the business side of it that he forgot what it was created for, I don't really know. But
someone could have threatened his family, dude. Like, I don't know. But I feel like also he owes so much money at this point because of that bullshit lawsuit against him that this may be the only way he can ever pay it. Like, I don't know. They got him.
That's BS because it's not him that owns it. It's the company that owns it. It's
so he could fold and walk away from it?
Yes.
And not be personally liable?
Yes.
Then he should. Then he should obviously just admit what he already knows and say, Mark Passio's right, guys. InfoWars is folding. Government is slavery.
Close it down and
quit your fucking cult.
Right across the street.
Donald Trump is
open up
democracy
a shop.
Democracy is bullshit.
Right across the street called like Propaganda Wars or something else, just a spin-off of the same thing, and just start up again with a new company.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could just walk away from that. He's not personally liable. But yeah, it just comes off like a pile of distractions whenever I still check it almost every day to see what they're talking about there. But it's
it's better than CNN.
Well, but I do that too. Not because I care about CNN's opinion, but I like to know what the news articles are saying in the US versus Canada versus Australia versus Russia versus India, and kind of.
What do you think about Russell Brand?
He's in
a psyop.
Yeah, he's in a lot of the same spot for me.
Right. But what do you think about, like, I like how he reports from the actual sources, kind of like Alex Jones does. It makes you
Yeah.
want to actually research the things.
Who's like Alex Jones for Canada? Is it Chris Sky?
Oh, yeah, I know Chris. Well, I know of him.
He seems a little bit like Alex Jones.
Well, he's very cult of
He's not as
personality.
big though.
Um, he's got a lot of ego. I don't know if his intentions are good or not. I really can't get a feel for that guy.
What do you guys think? Do you think it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven? If you really think about it, honestly, what we're talking about is money talks, bullshit walks. Okay, that's the motto of our current society. Name one person advocating natural law that's financially successful. And I'm
Well,
not saying that makes somebody legitimate or not, but I'm just saying uh, finance, that's the biggest religion. It doesn't matter if you're in Mecca, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, the Vatican. All those organizations take cash donations.
there's a video I should send you after this by a guy. He goes by Stardust. He's part of the MGTOW community, but he did a video where he did a breakdown of Patrick Bateman from American Psycho
Okay.
and the psychology of that character and what he was describing as he went through sort of the process of what you see frustrating Patrick throughout his workday and his life is that he's woken up to how fake everything he's interacting with is, the whole corporate America life. He's woken up to what it is, and he's furious at himself, but he doesn't have the internal constitution to walk away from it and give up that lifestyle.
Right.
So he's taking out that frustration in a way. It's another vent for that anger that he's feeling at himself.
Think about how much we've been inculcated to idolize wealth to the point where, like,
Right.
you know, if you look up inspirational quotes and it's like Warren Buffett,
Yeah,
like
totally.
everybody wants to talk about, like, this is I've
The
I
word
found
success
inspiration and then I got rich.
Yeah, the word success or ambition is basically synonymous with wealth at this point. You can't be
Correct.
ambitious in that you're trying to develop a really, obscure skill. You're only ambitious if it's going to make you money. You're only
Yeah.
successful if you made that money.
I love that we're talking about this.
Evangelist pitchmen, running their different Jesus stores. God loves you, and the way you know He loves you is you believe that you'll get wealthy, and then He dumps the wealth on you, and then if you don't believe it, then you're cursed to be poor. And I'm thinking, like, what a crock of shit. Well, what a satanic fuck. Like Joel Osteen and all these guys. Like, that's a contradiction in terms. But, like, you realize that, like, all the religions, all the governments, all the successful business people are plus 10 wealth, like, negative morality. Like,
Right.
and you can look at it like in the music industry too. I mean, how many virtuoso musicians and skilled composers and talented singers are actually on the top of the pop charts? They're not. Mozart would be laughed off of the charts today if he was still alive. It doesn't matter how. It's not even about quality. It's what makes money. And if you want to know what makes money, you have to cater to the lowest common denominator. This is like Malthus, the Malthusian trap. Like, we've gotten to a point where resources are very common. Therefore, we're starting to degenerate and collapse in on ourselves. So all of this techno babble about a singularity of AI and consciousness, you see people have completely abandoned the idea of human consciousness. There's so many people just mentally, masturbating on a bunch of podcasts about how AI is this, the singularity that. How many people are willing to define what consciousness is, what morality is? We've completely sidestepped that. Like, thank God for computers, because now we don't even have to analyze the ethics of our own behaviors. We can just immediately start,
Another topic to discuss is like, what is
global
consciousness?
Yeah, well, apparently it's nothing. If you ask Yuval Noah Harari, it's like
Yeah.
a anomalous delusion, and these clowns have ties with the WEF and Klaus Schwab. Like, our entire society is completely trying to circumvent, a morality in general, and just go to a post morality, post human, transhuman, post truth. They've said that in their own writings.
Wow.
And
That's
so,
that.
yeah.
Oh, 1 second. Oh, did I? Oh, there's the window. I'm getting all confused. Just, you reminded me of something I saw about a day ago when I had to pull it up. I sent you, Darin, a link to a song. I pulled up the lyrics here. I'm not sure how much I can even go through. This is the height of the modern rap music industry. The song is called "Eating."
Eating. Oh god.
Eating? Who's it by?
Suki Hana, Sukihana.
Okay.
I've got the lyrics up in
Oh
front.
gosh, I'm looking at. I'm scanning the lyrics right now.
Yeah.
Oh
Bitch,
goodness.
Suki with the good cat, yeah, the motherfucking good cat, yeah. Y'all hoes know my fucking name, bitch. Bitch, you know my motherfucking name, ho.
Let's stop casting that spell, Curt. Let's not cast that spell.
Gotta get
Oh jeez.
boats and hoes.
Well,
Yeah,
it sucks because the rap is actually there's some really amazing conscious rap, but yeah, that doesn't get to the radios.
A
Yeah.
conscious rap artist is called Atma, Atma, Atma. He is an amazing conscious rapper. I had the pleasure of meeting him.
Wow.
He has Beyond Birth and Death,
Sweet.
Master Builders. He's been
Nice.
part of a lot of Lost Children of Babylon, but it's all Atma, and he's in the East Coast, I believe, New Jersey area. But if I were to throw a festival, like a freedom festival, he would be the artist that I would want to perform.
Nice.
I've bought his physical albums. He raps like multi-syllabic rhymes, and he discusses metaphysics in there. I mean, his raps are like hundreds of vocabulary words that you would have to look up in an occult dictionary.
Sweet.
He knows this stuff, but that's what the industry doesn't want. They don't want KRS-One. They don't want Atma. They don't want any of these spiritual
Immortal Technique. Have you heard of Immortal Technique?
Yes. They specifically, the industry specifically pushed the gangster rap agenda because of financiers wanting to pump up the for-profit private prisons.
Right.
So they would meet at their little closed meetings, and they would say, "Look, man, we need private prisons. We also need a low. We need a low.
Yeah, so they need to put the bad influence and make the people like do all the stupid shit. So they
same way they created the
prisons
system after the civil rights movement, because they have to have some way to keep people down without admitting they want to keep people down. It's epic eugenics.
I like a lot of Immortal Technique songs. He's got a lot of songs that are like really anti-police. But then, like, I didn't watch the whole interview. I saw some clips of him in like an interview with Abby Martin. I don't remember specifically what he said, but I think he's like a socialist. I was kind
Oh,
of
really? I
disappointed.
didn't know that.
I'm not sure though. Like, I still need to watch that video. But
Either
Jedi
way,
mind tricks.
Black Panthers were socialists too and Marxists, but either way, they don't want people taking care of themselves and their own communities.
The
That's
modern
why
like
we have Martin Luther King Day and not Malcolm X Day, because they don't want anybody to actually think for themselves and
the
resist
original Black
tyranny.
Panthers were not socialists, and
I mean,
like there's like two branches. I think like there's still like some non-socialist original
Right.
branch.
But they didn't even want them taken off to where they could like do anything effectively, because they weren't. They were trying to take care of themselves and not be part of the system and not lean on daddy government, mommy welfare.
Check out the song "End of Days" by Jedi Mind Tricks. It's got some samples of David Icke. It's a real awesome song.
Nice.
there's a speaking of music, there's a guy, Oliver Anthony. He wrote a song called Richmond.
Oh, yeah.
North of Richmond. I fucking love that song. It's so good. And
It is a
I
good
don't
song.
normally like country music, but the lyrics were really good for that song.
I think that's
Yeah.
folk music. Oh, you know, my dad just showed me a folk band. Like, I've definitely heard of them, but like, he was like playing it at his house. I listened. They've got like a lot of really good pro freedom songs. Simon and Garfunkel, they're a pretty awesome band.
Yeah.
I want to mention one more. He's this YouTuber. He does like content of like talking about like morality and stuff. I think he's actually on the Great Work Network. I'm not sure about that, but it's called Lifting the Veil. Is the name of his YouTube channel, and he makes a lot of rap songs too. Like you can find his rap videos on his YouTube channel. His name is
Nice.
Chris Geo.
Oh,
GEO.
cool.
He, like kind of like rap and rock combo, but like some real good conscious songs.
Nice. Yeah, that's
maybe
what they
we could
don't
do
want.
like a playlist in the episode description. Yeah, if you guys come up with other ones after the recording.
We're adding that song by Suki on the playlist, right?
Oh no, we're not.
Look at
Just
Megadeth.
for contrast.
Look at Megadeth having a real cynical view of government. There's a reason why, Megadeth wasn't as popular as they should be. Yeah, Dave Mustaine might not be like, fully there, but I don't know, man. I think he's close. I think he's really close. I mean, Symphony of Destruction. You take a mortal man and put him in control. Watch him become a god. Watch people's heads roll. Just like the Pied Piper led rats through the streets, we dance like marionettes swaying to the Symphony of Destruction.
Dude.
Like, yeah. I mean, he's there.
Nice.
He knows what's up. Like, I don't know if he feels he can do anything about it, but if you read his lyrics, he definitely knows.
I was at a Megadeth show, a year and a month or two ago. No, I guess 15 months now. And it was kind of funny because he brought up them kind of taking a break from touring because of COVID, and the response from the crowd was more negative than he really quickly changed the subject on that.
You see what their album was called, though? The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead? And it had the plague mask. Yeah, that's what their album was called. I bought the LP. That was when they were touring with, was it The Who? The Mongolian metal band? And who was the other group? Five Finger Death Punch. They went around I think about a
They
year
do like
ago.
the throat singing, right? The Mongolian
The
one.
Who, yeah. It's amazing.
I love them, yeah.
They're really cool. But it was amazing for them and Megadeth to be touring. Five Finger Death Punch, it's like whatever. But it's that kind of music, or like Living Color, the Cult of Personality. where did their career go? Like
Right.
Queensryche,
Dude, we're definitely doing a playlist, yo, and we're gonna
another
yeah.
empire. Yeah, yeah.
There's got to be the song called "Rookie of the Year" by Law Abiding Citizens. That band's no longer around. I mentioned them. Like my friend was the lead singer. He died.
Yeah, I was listening to their music when you mentioned that in one of our
Oh,
after class discussions. I liked them. Yeah, I'm so sorry. That's
I'm
I'm gonna
glad
go
you
ahead
sad.
checked
and
them
add
out.
that to my playlist.
Um, yeah, I feel like there's just so many ways, right? Like I've brought this up in our class discussions and stuff, but like trying to orient ourselves towards solutions, like just coming up with like music we should listen to, right? Instead of the shit that they have on the radio or whatever. Not that anyone do people still listen to the radio? I guess they do.
Yes.
See, I
do.
tweaked
Unfortunately,
Pandora with all these things that I thought sounded good and catchy, and like every music I like from every genre, and like I put like thousands of inputs into it, and then I started learning how like this whole music industry is run by Satanists, and like most of these people, I don't want to give them attention or participate in what they're doing at all. So like I
Yeah.
started all over.
It's becoming a recent trend that a lot of artists have been doing music videos where they do these transition scenes where like they'll turn their head and suddenly their eyes are either all white or all black and they have horns and like they just suddenly look like a demon.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
have
been,
you seen any?
especially rappers have been doing it recently.
Have you
There
seen the
was
British drill rap? It's
no.
it's it's called drill music. It's like a weird genre of rap that's all satanic. Like they're talking about like smashing a baby's head and drinking adrenochrome and like it's got kind of like cool sounding beats. It's got like the minor notes, so it sounds creepy. But like, yeah, it's disturbing on purpose.
I definitely will not be including that in our episode description.
No, it's
Don't want to
When,
give that a
when you're
hit.
13 years
I don't
old,
like it or anything, but it's
when
worth checking
you're
out to
13
see
years old,
like
smoking
what's out
weed
there.
and drinking alcohol and listening to songs about murder and committing crimes against your fellow man, and you don't have any parents in the house to slap the shit out of you and tell you you're being a bum and you need to get your life together and quit being a street punk. What do you think happens? They grow up to be antisocial personalities. I mean, it what and I've had friends that say, "Oh, like I listen to this music because I like it," and I'm like, if you like it, then you're fucked up.
Yeah.
If you really like music about committing a robbery, then you're a piece of shit. Because what as a man thinketh, so is he. Okay? If you think shit, then your personality is going to become shit because your moral character is shit, and then everything you do is going to go to shit. And that's
Yeah.
why we're in a shitty spot as a species. Like,
Besides
people
the,
really
the
need to stop entertaining shit thoughts,
Well,
shit
besides
music.
the lyrics, another main part of the music is the melody and the rhythm. That like
That puts people
certain
into a hypnotic state to where they can
yeah,
not
but like
consciously think of the diarrhea that's pouring into their cranium.
some beats are just like a high quality beat and like it's really motivating and like it really catches your attention and
Getting to
like
do what though?
these people who make these high quality beats they just want to make a lot of money and the music industry is going to give them a lot of money if they put that with some rapper that's talking about killing people
Right.
and like all kinds of
or
bad stuff
or
like
whatever.
yeah by the money
Used to
they're
work
getting all the good beats and
Um,
putting it with all the bad lyrics.
yeah, I used to
Well,
work in the mortgage industry, and they would listen to these shitty, immoral lyrics while they're handling people's mortgages, and I'm like, "Oh yeah,
wow.
bro, it makes me grind. It makes me like want to hustle harder." And I'm like, No, it makes you want to be a piece of shit and then tell someone on the phone whatever they want to hear, and then you tell them, "Oh no, bro, it's not going to hurt your credit score. It's a soft pull." It's a hard pull. It's the hardest pull you can have, and no, it's greed. It's really that's the motivating force behind rap and pop is mostly greed. Even the violence is motivated by greed.
And most country.
Yeah, and
Like,
you know, I see
Cornstalk
people
Rock.
walking around with $100 bill on their shirt, and I'm like, bro, can you be like a bigger house slave?
Right. Well, going back to our
Yeah.
earlier discussion. Yeah. Go ahead, Curt.
Oh, just in terms of being a bigger house slave, you could be a cop. That'd be bigger. 'Cause then you're
Yeah.
actually whipping the other slaves for
The
not obeying
overseer.
the master.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Geri, go ahead.
Oh no, I was
You
just
Who do you
trying to
feel worse
tie.
for? I was thinking about criminals who objectively don't deserve to be here getting killed by a cop. What do you think?
I don't care.
Yeah, neither do I. There's certain times like when people want to go protest police officer killing somebody, and I'm like, dude, the only thing the police did was ensure that this guy lived way longer than he wanted to, because there are plenty of people that person robbed and scammed and stole from that didn't do what needed to be done because they didn't want to go to prison. So,
Yeah, like,
you know what I mean?
without the cops,
Context
probably way less
matters.
people would have been victimized because one of the victims would have killed the guy instead of being one of those victims maybe 100 victims ago.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Like, let's just be real, dude. The way George Floyd died was unprofessional, but when I look at how he lived his life, I kind of, I'm like, I wouldn't expect someone to live that long.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
armed armed robberies. Like, fuck them.
Right.
Like, whatever.
See,
They're both murderers.
like the whole George Floyd, like it reminds me of an example of like I want to kind of compare it to voting, because like with voting, you're going to have like some people on one side of an issue, some people on another side of an issue, and everyone like has like some like small amount of say. Everyone has like an equal amount of say. By whatever side they're going to be on, and the majority wins. And like the majority wins because the government like awards the winnings to them by stealing it from the loser through violating their rights. Like when you're voting, you're wielding the government against the minority, against whoever loses the vote. I like what George Carlin said. Like, people say like, oh, you've got no right to complain because you vote. No, it's the opposite. The people who do vote have no right to complain. Like, I do have a right to complain because like I didn't make this mess. I didn't vote all these bad ways of doing things into being reality. But like without voting, I think like whoever like wants to get involved and like be on one side of some issue will like join on the side, like with the George Floyd, for example. Like people think like George Floyd should be defended because like the cop did something bad to him and caused him to die. I heard like he actually died of a drug overdose later on in jail. He didn't die from the cop sitting on his face or whatever. But anyway, if the people think like George Floyd should be like defended, and well, he's already dead. Like, what can they do? Like, they can't bring him back. That cop that killed him. What's his name again?
Derek Chauvin.
Yeah, Derek Chauvin. Oh, okay, like they think like, well, Derek Chauvin, he could never bring back George Floyd. The best he could do is maybe like ease some of the pain and suffering of George Floyd's loved ones, because like the guy who died is the ultimate victim, but also people who cared about him, they're also victims. So
Okay.
like if these people who cared about him, like if they're victimized, like maybe it gives them some type of satisfaction to see revenge, and okay, they want to kill Derek Chauvin, so they could try to kill him and like get like a mob of people trying to kill him. You get another mob of people saying like, no, Derek Chauvin should have been defended, and like they're trying to defend him. Like whichever side has the biggest
Do you remember?
mass of people is going to win. It's like nature's version of voting. It's a true mob rule, but it's actually more just because like the amount that you care about something and the amount of like time and effort you're going to invest in it is going to determine the amount of effect you can have. Like with voting, like everyone has like a quantum unit of effectiveness or of like willpower. They don't have like the free willpower to apply like as much willpower as they care to apply to make whatever effect. But like if you also have the right to like not choose either side. Like I heard George Floyd put a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach before. Like I don't want to defend that guy. Also, I don't think it's right for cops to kidnap people and put them in their car.
We don't want anti-police bias to become pro-criminal bias. So all cops are bastards?
Right.
I prefer all criminals are bastards because government is a crime anyway.
All cops are criminals, and all criminals are bastards.
Correct.
If I see a violent criminal and a cop fighting each other, I'm not rooting for either of them. I just don't care.
Right.
If they both end up killing each other in the same moment, that's perfect.
Right.
Yeah, all government is just sophisticated criminals that are not recognized as criminals.
Right. But I would say that sometimes, like, a broken clock is right twice a day. There was a young man who was unarmed who tried to flee from an arrest, and he got shot. It might have been the one where the lady said she mistook her taser for the gun. Anyway, I looked up the background story and like the reason for this guy's warrant, and apparently the story is, and of course I wasn't there, but the reason why this guy had a warrant out is because he stayed the night over a woman's apartment, and then when she got the rent money in the morning, they robbed her at gunpoint, and I think like prevented her from leaving. Like they robbed this young lady of her rent money, and then like she reported it, and that's how the warrant got out. And I'm thinking like, okay, so then the police ended up like following up on that, and he got killed. But like, whatever.
And a cop could save somebody's life too.
Yeah,
they don't need to be a cop to save somebody's life.
Correct.
Like if they weren't a cop, they still could have done that good thing.
The existence of the law and the police is like, imagine that if somebody spent the night over your house and then robbed you of your rent money in the morning, like you have to prove that. You have to prove that now, and then there's a court proceeding, and then nobody ever knows or cares like if you actually end up paying your rent or you lose your place to live. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
individual circumstance. Maybe in that one moment when they're doing good, a cop can be good. But in the big picture for their whole career, all cops are bad.
Right. And I just don't mind when one predator who's spent their entire life violating other human beings' rights like get taken out by another predator. I don't care, but I do realize that the existence of law and order is it's enabling the careers of criminals.
Yeah, it's a good segue into what we were.
And steal is because they think they're going to survive, and they're probably correct. Like people don't get killed for breaking into cars and stealing, wallets out of them. But if they did, they might not do it.
Well, but
we wanted to get into the. Go ahead.
Okay, I posted a rant someone else had done in the group chat for the class that was talking about this specifically regarding the sanctuary cities and the migrants, where when these cities decide that they're not going to persecute certain crimes, but they are going to persecute other crimes, you have a Pavlovian mechanism where these people are now learning which crimes they're allowed to commit and which ones they're not allowed to commit. So the government has to only go after crimes that hurt its agenda while not going after crimes that forward its agenda. For instance,
Right.
if you look in the UK, definitely go after anyone who's taking down all the security cameras all over the cities. But if someone's breaking into people's homes and robbing them, you don't care. They're the peasants. You want that wealth transfer to happen. Why would you prosecute that man?
Right.
So it becomes the criminals are the enforcers for the state, most of them without even realizing it. Because through changing policy on which crimes you are going to prosecute, you decide which crimes are and aren't being committed, and you can create social pressures that move demographics around. It's social engineering.
Right. Yeah, they're creating a purpose, right? Like you need the government to prevent crime, and crime exists because the government allows it to exist. I mean, it's Marcus said it really well in a lot of his work, but I mean, if people, and especially in the UK, like you have the right to watch the person steal your shit. You can call the police if you want to, but you can't touch that person. I don't even think you can lock them in a closet. I think you can't touch anybody. And I know in the state of Michigan, like if I were to like watch somebody hotwire my car out in the driveway and start to drive away, I can't pull them out of the car and use physical force and touch them. There is absolutely nothing under the law that allows me to use physical force. If somebody steals my backpack and I have my laptop, I can't trip them. If I trip them while they're stealing my laptop and they fall and they break their arm, I'm in way more trouble than they would be. There's absolutely nothing, especially if they don't touch me. If it's like on a table, I have to watch them take my property, and I get to call it and bitch on 911, and then I have to
Or the best you could do is let them get the upper hand by making like the first attack. You could grab the backpack and say like, no, this is my property. I'm not letting go of it. And then hope he tries to like hit you.
But I can't.
And once he hits you, then you can hit back.
But I can't. I can't watch them run away with my property and then throw a brick at the back of their head and then take
you
my
should be able
back.
to.
You should be
without being punished, because it's not a wrongdoing.
House and take your stuff back. You know.
I mean,
that's defense.
Here
everyone has the right to defend themselves and others. I don't think it's an obligation to defend others, but it's definitely a right. And in a way, it's like it is. I'm not sure that it's not an obligation. I think it's a responsibility. If you look at the etymology, if you have an ability to respond, you have a responsibility. That I think that's the true meaning of the word. But say I see someone else being victimized, being robbed or something, and I know I've got the ability to stop it. That person being robbed, he's not entitled to have me defend him. But on the other hand, like if you let the robbery prevail, like more robbery is going to happen. Like if nobody defended anyone else, those people who couldn't defend themselves would be defenseless, and then the government could step in and say like, oh, I'm going to be the one to protect you. And people would believe there's a need for police. Like if people don't defend each other, there would be a need for police, but it's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's not something we should need. We can avoid that need by defending each other. Like to live in a peaceful place, like you need to provide security, and to like sit out of a situation and not do your part of providing security is kind of like a bum or a coward type of mentality. Like you're getting the safe place because you're depending on other people to do defense and make it a secure place to live overall. And no, like you can't say like, no, you're in the wrong for not defending someone, but you could say like, oh, later on, this same person, you remember them not defending someone when they could have, and now they're in need of defense, and I could provide defense to this person, but I've got to take a risk myself, and is it worth taking that risk if he's like a bum or a coward, someone who wouldn't take the risk for me or someone else if they needed it? You could take that into account. But also, if you really look at the big picture and consider us all part of the same life form, like, the right hand should protect the left hand because it's part of the same body being hurt. You by defending others, you're defending yourself. If you recognize everyone as part of the same life form,
You always have the right to. You don't have to. I mean, there's times where I didn't defend myself because the person robbing me had a gun and I didn't.
Right. In the same way, I might feel more motivated to help someone defend themselves if they're already resisting.
Right.
If someone's fighting back against their mugger, I'm a lot more motivated to go help them than if they're meekly handing over their wallet.
I will say though, like sometimes, like in experiences that I've had where my rights are being violated, people can have like a freeze response, and it's not necessarily like that they, it's just not available mentally at that moment.
Sure. And I think it's all about also like not only like having the right to, but also the means to, and the ability. Like, for example, I might not be able to do something myself, but within a few minutes, I could track the location of a person and get a group of friends together and fix the situation. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, so you got to be strategic about it because, life is fragile. And I feel like when we do have the ability to respond, we should. But there's other factors in the way. Like, for example, one time I stopped an assault inside of a dollar store. A guy tried to grab the clerk, and he was
you went to
running
jail,
his mouth.
right?
Yeah, yeah. For like, no, not for that one. No, the cops showed up, but on that one, they let us both walk. But the guy was mad because there was like a refund. He wanted a refund, and there was a no refund policy. And I was just watching him go off on this lady and cuss her out and pound his fists on the counter. And I was just kind of like, hey, man, like in a little while, the owner of the store will be here and he can probably give you a refund, but there's no reason to go off like this. And he told me to shut the fuck up or whatever. I didn't do anything until he went across the street, called 911, yelled a bunch of obscenities into the payphone, slammed the phone a bunch of times, then ran back into the store and threatened the clerk. And he was like, "Oh, this is the last time." And she was like, "I'm going to have to call the police or something if you don't stop." And he goes, "I will fuck you up after the police leave." And he went to reach over the counter, and she took a step back, but he almost got her apron, and he was going to pull her right over the counter and beat the shit out of her.
Yeah.
And so at that point, that's when I stepped in, kicked him in the back of the knee to where his knee buckled and his head went back, choked him, threw him down on the ground. We ended up scrapping out in the middle of the street until the cops got there and knocked down all like the greeting cards and the sunglasses in the front by the register. And the first thing she said afterwards, she goes, why'd you do that? I can take care of myself. And I'm like,
What
yeah,
the
okay.
fuck? I would have said thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, I mean,
Aw,
the store
Darin.
owner
Maybe
offered me a
she's scared
job.
of that
She
guy in
was
front of him. She doesn't want to
she
look
was
like.
probably a couple of things. Scared of him coming back, and two, she's got to clean up the whole freaking store now by herself.
Yeah.
Okay, so like I get it. But I'm just saying, like, sometimes not everybody at the moment will appreciate it. Now later on, when I came back, the store owner showed me the video on all the cameras, so we got to see like from behind, overhead view, outside the store. It was pretty cool. And I asked him like, "Can you burn me a copy?" And he's like, "No, I'm not going to burn you a copy." But
Are you trained in martial arts?
he offered me a job actually.
Wow.
But I politely declined because I was like, I don't want to do this on a regular basis. And I think I would be dealing with a lot of that. Yeah, I've had some wrestling and Koi-Kon karate.
Yeah, it's smart to start with the
And
knees.
lots, yeah, attacking.
Have
the
you
knee.
learned martial arts, Geri?
Yes.
I saw some of your grappling, and like, there's been a lot of things like it's so useful, and like sometimes like the mindset is what's important, like a mind of no mind. There's a difference when you're actually in a self-defense situation, but I think one of the worst things you can do is go easy on people in a self-defense situation. The only times I've gotten hurt where I've chipped a tooth or I've broken a knuckle or like torn my ACL, like in an actual fight, it's when I've chosen to let up.
Yeah, only if you could like totally dominate and like restrain someone without hurting them until they give up.
Still,
but if you can't do that right away, if that doesn't just happen right away, like automatically, then you just have to go all in, like because it's you versus them. Like
it's like, look, if it's not worth utterly fucking injuring somebody, then it's not even worth fighting.
I remember in high school, like
like if somebody's weak and they punch you in the face and they're not gonna kill you and they're not gonna follow up, you might as well just walk away. Oh well, you got punched in the face. But if you feel like they can hurt you, go ahead, do an Uchimata, slam their head into the pavement, stomp their fucking chest, and do whatever you got to do to make sure they don't get up in any appreciable amount of time.
Some kid in high school stole my backpack and ran away with it, and I went and chased him and I tackled him and I fell down like on top of him, like with him in a headlock, and like I could just get the headlock tighter and tighter. It could have like snapped his neck quickly, but like he just tapped out and gave up, and I let him go. And I got my backpack and started walking away, and he came behind me and got me in a headlock. And then I was tapping out, and he wouldn't let me go until like I almost passed out. And like for months afterwards, I had like a sore neck and everything. Like it's because like I went easy in a self-defense situation.
You have empathy. You don't really want to do it, and it feels disgusting. I'm not gonna lie. It feels like you take like a pork chop and put it on a brick and you slam your fist into it while there's blood spraying out. Like it's not a good feeling. Yeah. But it's even worse when it happens to you. So it's nasty. Because I'm not gonna lie, like there's been times in a fight where I just felt like throwing up because I'm just feeling this meat coconut.
Yeah, the adrenaline rushing, it makes you feel like you've just like ran several miles. You get like those side aches. It's there's physiological effects.
Yeah, like once it slows down and you're like, it starts to break down. Yeah, you can even like dissociate, but like at the moment, you got to seize the moment because like Mike Tyson said, like the best punch is the one that you don't even feel. Like if you ever connect really good, like you don't even feel it. It feels like you just punched a pillow of air and then they drop like a sack of potatoes.
I want to say something more about like
moment. It's much harder. Then you're fighting on adrenaline as opposed to like in the moment. You can kind of transcend that before the effects.
Besides defending yourself, though, it really is important to defend others because sovereignty is something you could just assert for yourself, but it's not very strong. It's not as effective unless it's like a relationship between yourself and other sovereigns. We need to like respect and protect we all want our rights respected, so we need to respect other people's rights. We want ours respected also, so we have to defend our rights to make sure they're respected. And yeah, we got to respect others. That's a mutual thing. Like the respect is mutual, and the defense is mutual. They've got a right to defend themselves. I got a right to defend myself. But the thing is, like, sovereignty's big opponent is slavery or dominion or government, whatever you want to call it. And the government or the force of domination or slavery, it wants to be effective. It wants to win this war. It's a war going. It's not just like a world war. It's like a war in the whole universe. But slavery wants to win. Like chaos, death wants to win against life and freedom, sovereignty, and to be effective, to have the upper hand, they're definitely working together. They're a mastermind, a psychotic mastermind, but like the force of slavery definitely gangs up on individuals, and if you're just an individual, you'll get ganged up on by the force of slavery.
Right.
So if you have a relationship, if you're protected by others and you're also providing that protection to others, then we could be like a real a worthy opponent who could actually defeat slavery.
But kind of in the same way I brought up, I'd be more motivated to defend someone who's already resisting. What good is risking your health to defend someone who's not going to reciprocate?
Now, part of that is like you got to use discernment and figure out if sometimes it's better to retreat, sometimes it's better to fight. Like before, right. You didn't even defend yourself, Darin, because getting your wallet stolen is a lot better than getting bullets poked through you. So and also, like, I don't know, one person getting killed is better than two people getting killed. Like if you don't have like a very good chance of like winning the fight that you try to defend, like, don't just be a martyr. But yeah, if you can definitely stop some horrible thing from happening and not take a big risk to yourself, and then you don't step in, then I would say you're a coward, and I don't want to defend you either. I want you off the face of the earth. You're not doing any good. Like,
whoa, that's a statement. It's one thing to not defend someone. It's another thing to want them off the face of the earth. That's an active position.
No, like, I'm not saying I want to go punish somebody for not defending someone. I'm not talking about you. I didn't comment because I was like busy at the time. I read a lot of that conversation you had in the chat, and like I don't think you're like one of these bums or cowards that I'm talking about. Like no, you were saying like you would defend in certain situations and you wouldn't defend in other situations. And it's actually the same for me. I wouldn't go like defend anybody in need ever. But I take into account like what am I sacrificing? Like, what security am I sacrificing? What risks am I looking at? And what am I saving? Like, and I gotta compare those. Just like every action has to be evaluated. Is it a right action, and is it a wise action?
Right. I just wanted to point out the difference between not approving of someone and wanting them to cease existing.
Maybe that is kind of harsh. Like,
right. That's why I said it's an active position.
Yeah, I would rather have them like grow mentally and like stop being a bum and a coward and stop being an enabler of bad things to happen.
I know what he means about having disdain for somebody who could have easily helped something but didn't, out of just being a selfish prick.
In some cases, definitely.
I have personal experiences with that. I get it.
Like, there was a guy in the store before me when that clerk was being attacked who just simply walked out. And I was like, "Hey, dude, you gonna help, or you gonna call someone?" And the dude just like, "Not my problem."
Like, if you're not gonna help someone else like survive, like, I don't know if I want to help you survive. I don't want to help you exist if you're not gonna help the next person exist. I don't know. Maybe I would. It's like
consciousness is the answer, because that's all in the aggregate is where it matters more, because on the micro scale, we might not be able to do everything that needs to be done. But if the vast, overwhelming majority do defend themselves, being a criminal is just like the worst job ever. Like, there's no point. Like, you know what I mean? Because if 7 out of 10 people are going to kill you when you try to rob them, come on, man. It's not even like a viable option.
Well, and like I was
People are
trying
going to
to say,
stop.
you don't know that person's life either. It's possible that guy stepped in to try to help people before and gotten burned and potentially spent time in jail for it, right? Like,
Right.
once burned, twice shy. You don't know what experiences or thoughts the other person in the room is having. You don't know what the motivations were that led them to that decision. He could have saw that and been like, yeah, not dealing with this again. Like, it could have already been a previous thing, right?
Right, like domestic issues. Like, why would I intervene when these people continue to choose to live together?
Right.
You know what happens in domestic disputes? A lot of times, whoever intervenes to break up the dispute,
It's
whether
beaten
it's
by
a
both.
cop or yes,
Yep. I
exactly.
know.
That's what they're literally the most dangerous type of incident that first responders get called to. Oh, he's beating my ass. He's beating my ass. As soon as the dude goes into cuffs, you got the lady hanging on the neck of the cops, like, don't you touch my boyfriend, or vice versa. And I'm like, bro, you literally summoned violence on somebody, and now you're saying, like, wait, never
Don't do
mind.
the thing I called you here to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
No,
Yeah.
I think if you're really a bum and a coward, I think nature. I think God hates cowards and bums because we are all part of God, and like if if I choose to be a coward, that part of God is a coward, and because I'm a part of the all. I can't stop that. Like I don't want to have cowards in my universe. Like I instead of wanting them to not exist, I think it's better to want them to grow and stop being cowards. So. But if they're not going to grow, if they're a lost cause, they're like
Yeah, I mean, tyranny exists because of cowardice. Let's be real. That's
Yeah.
that's what it is. I mean,
That's
you
why the
have
world
to.
is how it is. That was,
Yeah.
I don't know if I brought it up with you guys, but when I was standing up to the racket with my military unit, um, and I was smoking a joint talking to a friend after work about it, and one of the guys from one of the other platoons in my company said to me, "Hey man, just so you know, Alpha Platoon really agrees with you. If everyone else stands up first, then we've got your back." Like, oh gee, if everyone else stands up on my behalf first, then you're behind me. It's great to have friends like that. Like,
Exactly.
really glad
Just
to
want to
have
know
that.
that it's a guaranteed win, and
Yeah.
there's no potential negative effects. Then we'll do it.
Yeah,
you know, I almost wrote a response when you guys were having the conversation in the chat about like rights and obligations. I was busy, I didn't, but I actually looked up obligation in the dictionary, and it's defined as like something that someone is required to do in order to be moral or to be legal. And I thought about that, and I know that like legal, as far as like true law, like the only real law is natural law. So that's involving morality. So legal just means moral, unless you're talking about like the fraudulent man-made laws, which don't count
they are.
because they're they're fraud. But so talk about like defending another person. Is that an obligation? Like in
No.
order to be moral, think about it. Like in order to choose,
I
like not
have.
in order to choose the action of being an onlooker, you're sacrificing like every other action that you're choosing not to take. You're sacrificing the action that leads to the timeline where you stop the bad thing from happening, and
Yeah.
you out of several choices you could choose, you're choosing not the most moral choice. It's like not the most immoral choice either, but like uh, it's it's not the most right. It's like when you could choose the most right, but you're choosing something that's less right, then maybe it's like not completely moral. So it is a requirement to be the most moral you could be. So in a way, you could look at it as like an obligation if you compare it to a more moral act that you're not taking. But if you compare it to like a less moral act, like helping do the wrong thing, then it's more moral than that. So it's like a scale of morality. It's in the middle. It's not the most moral. It's not the least moral either. So I don't know. Like,
So
is it an obligation or not? Like,
I wanted
I
to
think
say
that's why
but
you got to
it's
use your
not
discernment.
immoral to refuse to help someone. That was the original statement. It is
It's
not
less moral than helping someone.
immoral. I'm not sure I agree with that even. Again, no one is owed that you help them. And why are they not standing up for themselves? You ultimately are supposed to be relying on yourself. Yes, I understand there are situations in which people cannot defend themselves.
Yeah. There's different reasons. Sometimes because
Yeah.
they can't. Sometimes because they choose not.
Right, and what reasons you have to not risk yourself are your own as well. No, you don't owe someone your own life. You
I don't
don't
know the
owe
answer. I just wanted to share
your
those thoughts.
your well-being to someone else to do that. You can choose to. You certainly aren't immoral for choosing to, but you don't owe it to anyone.
I
And
think
the reason I
sometimes it's
get
immoral to
so
choose not to.
the reason I get so hung up on this is because people are very entitled in terms of what they think other people should or shouldn't be giving them. All these societal expectations of what everyone else should be doing for me. Well,
Right,
no,
because
I'm
you're a man
not.
and I'm a man, and if we witness something and we don't do anything, then we
Right.
fail to fulfill this obligation. In other words, it turns you into a full time volunteer cop who
And
doesn't
all
get paid,
right. You
and you
give
Right.
all this, men are pigs, they objectify women, they turn them into sex objects. Yeah, they do. And women turn men into financial objects and success and status objects and
And sex
sex
objects too. Yeah.
and violence objects and death objects.
right.
And
I don't want to
sometimes
get recruited into that, you know.
right.
No.
So yeah, there sort of the number of like American men I know right now through some of the communities I'm in who outright say like, man, if the country goes to war, I will refuse the draft. Like I'm not doing it because I
Right.
don't owe anyone my protection. They're not on the natural law front. They haven't really computed that part. Um, I've been trying to think of how I'd want to try and introduce these ideas to that community. But
Yeah.
in the meantime, they still understand that, like, no, you've done nothing but tell me you hate me and ruined my life, my whole, like, since childhood. Why the hell would I stand up and protect you? Like, oh no, Russia's gonna take over if we don't. So what? Why would that be worse than what I'm dealing with now? Like, why would I bother? Okay, just change of management. Other than that, nothing's really different.
Right. When I worked in the store, we had a pallet of cases of water, and let's say each case of water had 24 bottles of water in it. That case probably weighs 30 pounds. Well,
Yeah.
let's see, a half liter is a half kilogram. So yeah, plus the bottle and the packaging. But there's a whole pallet, which was probably one, two, three, probably 6 cases high, 6 by 6. There's probably a gross of there's probably at least 100 cases on there. It's a full grocery store pallet. Okay.
Yep.
That pallet wouldn't go from the back room to the front of the store because the door to the back room was too narrow. So it would have to go from the receiving door, broken down in the back room, onto a cart, and then manually loaded onto the shelves and restacked on a pallet as an end cap display. So being a man, whose job was that to
Every
stack
time.
these cases of water? every
The
fucking
woman's
time.
job.
And I said, look, we both get paid the same amount of money. We're in the same position. We're equal. And
How dare you.
I'm not. And then after I do that, I have to go in the cooler because I also don't like being cold. And I'm like, dude. And then take out the trash because it's dark outside and I don't want to go to the dumpster by myself. It's like, dude, in that case, go home and pay me what she's getting, so I can
Yeah.
do double time. Or
You're
she can
not
just
wrong,
stay
but like,
at the register. She can just stay at the register and make $5 an hour, and I'll make 25, and that's fair because she's doing about 30% of the work. And the thing is like I understand, like, oh, she's a 50-year-old lady with a bad back. It's like, dude, my back hurts too, motherfucker.
yeah,
When I go home, I would love to have a day off where I'm not dealing with carpal tunnel and some sciatic nerve pain because other people have issues. Like, I'm not saying she has to do it, but I'm saying the fact that I have to do it for the same amount of pay is bullshit. Like, there's a reason why you should earn less if you do
what
less.
if you didn't have
You
back
tr-
pain and there's someone who's just a lot weaker than you, and it's just like way easier for you to like lift the heavy things and like let them
Then
pull their weight doing something else? Like,
I do it on a if it's a one off,
yeah,
like, obviously.
yeah,
Even if I'm in a store and there's a customer who can't lift or reach something, like, I don't even fucking work there. I'll help them get their item. But when someone's gonna tell me that, like, I'm getting paid the same as somebody who watches me do that for 4 hours, that's the bullshit part. So, like, that can easily happen with societal expectations where from each according to his ability to each according to his needs. That sounds
yeah. It
great when
sounds
it's
like
voluntary, but when it's
voluntary.
obligatory,
Yeah,
that's fucking communism and
yeah.
tyranny. So
Communism, socialism are very bad,
we
but
all
those
have the
principles that
right to
make them, if you
defend
do them
ourselves.
voluntary,
And I think
oh,
if personal defense were to become obligatory, there would be obviously, like, so some people are less capable. Like, obviously, like, the elderly members of my family are less able to defend themselves. But if it becomes obligatory, we're going to have a lot of fucking leeches using
Yes.
us as cannon fodder for their own personal disputes.
Well, you already have that in Europe and some of North America now, where you have a lot of women posting these videos like, I just saw a woman get, her purse snatched in the street, and there were all these men, and none of them lifted a finger to stop.
they didn't want to go to jail. Yeah,
Right, and like, no. You've been telling these guys they're hateful and toxic for being masculine their entire lives. They don't want to help you. A lot of them don't even like you.
Yeah. And when they do, they get in trouble for helping
Right.
or hurt.
It never turns out well for you. A lot of guys, even just from seeing that happen to like other men they know, have learned not to help, and that's been taught into society. Um, I know lots of guys who will outright say, like, "Yeah, if I see a woman at the side of the road with a flat tire, I keep driving because it's just not worth the potential false allegation."
Yeah, I
It's
think these
often
are
used as a setup for a robbery too.
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I think a few things came up for me hearing this discussion. Like, I think where we landed was an agreement that on an individual level, people should be internally motivated, whether or not based on the situation, their ability, et cetera, to help due to the law of freedom, right? Like, if everyone makes that same choice in the aggregate, we're going to see a different sort of society, but like, yeah, on an individual level, sure. And then obviously with the neo-feminist agenda, like, I think what really helped me in my
No,
journey as a
not even the neo-feminist agenda. Even if you go back to like the original women's suffrage movement, and we in this chat are all fully aware that government is slavery and it's all slavery, but ultimately What they were arguing for was that women should be given the right to vote, but should not have to be eligible for the draft. So they get to help pick who gets to declare whether or not we're at war, but they're not at risk of being sent to go die in it. So
yeah, like they claim that originally it was, before it was like corrupted into the neo-feminist movement, it was truly about promoting the idea that men and women should be treated equally. It should be irrelevant whether you're men or women. Like, don't be biased based on gender. But even the name of the whole movement kind of goes against that, because it's not called like equality between sexes. It's called feminism.
Sure. Yeah. It's, I think, yeah, what helped me deprogram from this mindset as a woman in Western society, but all just generally, like, I've dated women before, and I was expected to pay because I was sort of more butch, and I was like,
Really?
fuck this. I was like, fuck this. And then, like, at the end of the day, the women wouldn't like want to like kiss me or do anything, and I'm like, I fucking paid for our fucking dinner, and you fucking like don't even want to like make out or anything. Like, what the fuck? Like, I just spent like $200 or whatever, like on the evening. Like, fuck that. And then like I have 2 boys, like and I've done a ton of plant medicine. But yeah, just like having 2 boys and just just all of that. Like, just I think a lot of people just get caught up in these dialectical thinking.
When you like actually go on a date and then like you pay for the meal and like you're perfectly like polite in this conversation, and then you're like, that's it, and then it's just
and
like,
you can't say anything because then you're like an asshole.
I'm never gonna see her again, probably, because like she's like, give a little quick hug or a fucking fist bump, and then get in your Uber, or I take you home, and they're like, okay, bye. And then, I'm sorry, I'm not really feeling it. And I'm just like, oh, I see. Like,
it
feels like shit to get used as a meal ticket. Or even if there is a hookup or two, then you're like, okay. But then then they're like, for no reason, like, and then just imagine that
would actually refer to that as a foodie call, right?
Yeah, foodie call.
That's so funny.
There's a Reddit called r/female dating strategy, and they outright talk where they actually talk about like strategies to get men to pay more for you on
to go for the kids, for your nails before the date.
They talk about
at what point is it not prostitution?
Right, there are a lot of men asking that question. They talk about what states have lifetime alimony. They talk about things like how to look for what they call a starter husband. As in,
because you can level
marry for his money, and then after 5 or 10 years or whatever the lifetime alimony cutoff is, you'll leave him and you go look for your real husband, right?
Sucks.
And then once you divorce the real husband, you can just like you have enough resources to like be single and happy. Like later, like you know how they do. They go through like this single wine mom phase as their kids get older.
That's so funny.
Hitting up the ladies' nights. Yeah.
Oh,
it's really
just so sad because there's so few women that have woken up from this,
and they don't feel bad. They don't feel bad. Like it's weird, but like normally, like. As a guy, like if somebody were to offer to buy my meal, it's happened to me one time. Like
really?
I was at a McDonald's,
wow.
And like the person ahead paid for your food, and I was like, "Oh my god! Like this is the first free meal I've got in my life." And then like, one time I was at a grocery store and I thought I had money. This was like when I was real poor and I was using food stamps. And I like it was a hot day and I was getting like 2 Gatorades and 2 vitamin waters. Like, and so it was like 4 drinks. It might have been like $6, $8, something like that. and I swiped a card and it was declined, and I'm like, oh man, I thought I had more money. Never mind. And I was just fully prepared to walk away, and this was at the self checkout, and then this lady was like, she turned around, she's like, "You're just getting those 4 drinks?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, I got it," and she just like put them on her. She scanned them on her order and said, "Take your bag." And I was like, "Holy shit," you know. But it's very awkward and very uncomfortable that anyone would just give me like a single beverage. And but the fact that I don't know how people can do that in the dating or even worse, the marriage scene, where people are like, yeah, I'm just entitled to like all this stuff that I didn't work for.
So
They're spiritual children.
But they're like grown up with it though.
yes,
They're
that's
brainwashed to believe it, that it's
so
okay.
that was part of the whole programming that we get is princess warrior programming, and that's where if you look at what's marketed to little boys, it's nothing but soldiers and cops, and if you're going into medieval, it's all warriors and other. It's exclusively use of force, and for women, like how many of the major female Disney characters are princesses, or whatever
Most
the
of them.
equivalent in their culture is, right?
Right.
And even the ones who aren't, like Belle in Beauty and the Beast, she doesn't start as a princess, but ultimately she finds an aggressive, violent man who elevates her social and economic status to a life of pure luxury. Like that's the story over and over again.
She found 2 of them.
Right.
She didn't
Yeah.
like one of them, but
mean,
you know,
killing each other over
there's that yeah, there's that aspect, and that's like highly marketed
Ingrained.
in our society. Yeah,
That's where when Marx
first you get
ranting
the
about
money,
how,
then you get the power, then you get the woman.
yeah, that's where Marx saying it's not human nature, it's programming.
Sure.
That's well, look at what's being sold to children. This crap, yeah, they grow up with it the whole way, and that's
Yeah.
I can show you women
And
being
what's with
interviewed
men?
about
Like,
these
who
things.
programmed men to enjoy excessive makeup and fake body parts? Do we know how that happened? Because I'm noticing a trend where, like, well, a lot of men like fake shit,
Yeah,
and like just like they like sports, which doesn't fucking matter. Like, if you're not playing sports, like I don't know why you'd care about like scores and
I have
professional
a funny
teams.
story. Go ahead.
But like, yeah, who, like, where does that come in? Like, how do men get programmed with that mind virus? Like, to where like, look, bro, like the boobs like that are this big are like not as good as the ones that look this big. Like, you know what I'm saying? We're talking about like mere centimeters, but like it matters to somebody. They don't care about the woman's moral character. They don't, you know. They think like, oh, she looks real good there, but she doesn't look good there. And what they think looks good is not a skin pigment. It looks like a porcelain doll, and it looks like dog shit, to be honest. Like, I don't care if you have wrinkles or freckles. I need to see a human complexion. I don't want to see fucking gypsum fucking paste in these mineral pigments all over your face. We're not statues. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know, but like somehow
I
men
was thinking
were
like
brainwashed to believe
by
that's
default, like
good.
kind of like the natural look better. I like women that look pretty without makeup or anything. But
well, that's also
then like this woman that just like she had a lot of
Ugly is
makeup on
better
and
than
like
fake.
something
Ugly
about it like
is better than fake.
like sometimes like the way the makeup's put on like it makes women just like look attractive. Like I can appreciate it sometimes. It probably is from some type of
well,
conditioning. But like, I like the idea of just like looking the way you look natural, not like putting decorations that are just there for the use of decoration. Like,
Who told
I
us
like,
wrinkles are bad though? Like, who the fuck told us that? When you get older, you know who aren't supposed to have wrinkles? Babies. You know who's supposed to have wrinkles? Adults.
well,
You know whose hair's supposed to be gray? adults. Like,
At the same
seriously.
time, if you're dealing with human sexuality and
You got a lot right there.
you're dealing with
Yeah.
fertility windows, right, for women.
Sure.
So after a certain age, you're not really able to have children anymore. Menopause hits. And even before menopause hits, the risks of things happening in that pregnancy get worse. So
I
there
wish
is,
that was the focus of society. It's not, but I know what you mean.
right,
It's the signs.
but in the same way, if you want to get, and I know Mark would throw a fit for me bringing this up, but if you want to get into the evolutionary biology arguments of this, in the same way, you don't have sex because you want to procreate often. You have sex because it feels good and you want to feel good.
And the byproduct is procreation.
And the byproduct is you end up
The whole
procreating.
reason of it feeling good is to motivate you to procreate, though. That's why it feels good.
Men are going to naturally be attracted to signs that a woman is younger because it means she has more of her fertility window left. That is a normal biological
What
process.
about a man who's conscious and necessarily doesn't even want to procreate? Like,
what about women liking men who shave their beards? Like a beard is like something that like it distinguishes men from. It's like it's a masculine trait. So like I don't know. Like I wonder how it started that men started shaving their beards and women think that's more attractive. Some women do, some don't. Like,
it's part of that whole like boy band thing, like just to emasculate men.
The androgyny.
Rome required it. Rome required it of their soldiers and young men, from what I heard. Only, I think, like, it was a status symbol. So unless you were in a certain social class, you didn't keep a beard or long hair. A uniformity and taking away the masculine power. Yeah, it is a way to emasculate people.
I wasn't expecting our conversation to go this direction, but yeah, it's just it's the greatest divide, right? That we
something Mark Passio said is like the real divide that actually matters that we should care about is are you working towards freedom or towards slavery? That like all the other divides benefit the ones working for slavery because they turn the people who want freedom against each other. Like,
well, just depopulation, right? Like if this divide continues, there's going to be less opportunity for
if they're divided,
like
totally.
A bigger populace is harder to control.
If you
have a nation full of men and a nation full of women, neither one of the nations are going to procreate unless they move on to cloning or something.
I've literally heard
enemies.
A 12-year-old girl say to her dad that she wants a nose job. And I know of teenage girls who've attempted suicide because they couldn't get on social media because they got their phone taken away for a decent reason. I mean, when you're a little kid and your parents tell you not to do drugs and you do them, they take your phone for a week as punishment, and then they think, oh, I can't, I don't have my phone. I gotta take a bottle of pills, and I hate my body. I look in the mirror and I say, I need a nose job. And it's like, dude, we've really set a real fucking toxic atmosphere. And like the people who want to become it and the people who want to consume it are both fucked up. Like, what have we come to where we have people putting like silicone, like rubber in their ass or in their calves, or injecting fucking into their trapezoid? Like,
you have silicone in your calves, Curt?
Chris Sky's girlfriend, because I met her after one of the rallies he had here, I think in London actually, but his girlfriend is like 90% silicone.
He looks like he's artificial too. At least his teeth.
Yeah,
you got to be like veneers or something.
I went to high school with a chick, and she got a nose job, and I didn't even friend her on Facebook. I creeped on the Facebook profile for a little bit, and I was like, fuck this bitch. She's doing fake tans and nose jobs. I don't want anything to do with her. Like, sorry, her face looked way better originally.
If you ever want a shock, do an internet search for porn stars with and without makeup. So you're getting face shots of them when they're done up for the shoot, and then what they look like when they don't have anything on. It's
I
nice.
want to see that.
Yeah, like
dude, how many of them
a lot
kill
of these
themselves?
women you pay to not screw them. It's terrifying.
Yeah, and you know what else is really crazy too? That like if like one time I saw this YouTube video about like it was a compilation of just faces and names of porn stars that killed themselves, and it's
Yep.
like, bro, like, and I know someone who like tried to jump off the Golden Gate Bridge, like after she did like a porno shoot, like.
Oh, no.
It fucking damages people, and they say that it's like, you know, voluntary. It's totally not. Once they get in these certain environments, a lot of the times it's like, well, yeah, you could walk away, but you could also like not have a flight home, and no one's going to pay your hotel room. But
Yeah, that's
these
why you
women
went to
and these
California,
people get into it, yeah, because like they're obviously fucked up to begin with, right? So like it's that parental abandonment.
A lot of them come from families with parents in the police or military.
Yes, dude, very abusive of households. So either like an absent father or a fucking sadistic abusive father.
Yeah, we actually had a warrant officer from my unit shortly before I got there, whose daughter was famous on base and later became a famous actress. To be polite about it.
Do you learn any martial arts in the Canadian military?
Yeah, I mean it's the military. It's martial.
Yeah,
Everything from.
Well, yeah, in a way, like the electricity I learned in the Navy was martial arts because I was applying that to. I would have applied that to make a warship sail, but
Well, but no, in a more.
no, I'm talking about. Do you learn like hand-to-hand combat? I actually didn't in the Navy at all.
Yeah, theoretically, you should never be getting in a fist fight with enemy navy if your boats are settling things with your fists. Something's gone drastically wrong for both sides.
The only thing I learned how to shoot guns.
Right.
Like
you pulled up right beside each other, and then
you could get boarded or something. You could get attacked in port.
But
yeah,
what are the odds?
Yeah.
What are the odds? But yeah, I was in the infantry, so there's a portion of the course at the end where they do hand-to-hand combat, grappling, some basic stuff with a bayonet on your rifle. They go over some things about knife fighting, just a general background. They encourage you to keep studying martial arts once you get to the base. My unit had a jiu-jitsu team.
Wow.
So, yeah, no, martial arts is heavily encouraged. In the classical use of the term, I knew what you meant. But yeah, and with that for infantry, like, the weapons I had to learn in battle school would have been the AR-15, as you guys would know it, the C9, which you guys would call the SAW. I think it's like the M249 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have the C6, which is a belt-fed GPMG. The light anti-tank weapons, the disposable rocket launchers, the grenades, the Carl Gustav recoilless rifle, just a whole slew of things.
So you notice that like a lot of the children of police and military do grow up to be mentally broken.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then
my bad for changing the subject.
Oh no, you're fine.
Yeah, it's just like I wanted to ask that about all of you. First, Geri asked about Darin. I learned some martial arts too when I was a kid. I took classes, but
Yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to ask everybody that. But anyway, let's continue about like kids from the military becoming porn stars.
Yeah, no worries. Well, and just being damaged in general. Like, you notice that people talk about military families, how a group is a military family, and like dad was in the army, then Junior's in the army, then his kid's in the army. Right.
Right.
But
Everybody knows.
right, but
I
it's an
broke the cycle.
It really is a cult. It's an attitude and a culture. Because everyone knows each other too, right? Like something happens on one base, people are hearing about it in the other bases that hour. Because everyone has done like courses. So like 2019, I got to do the bodyguard driving course, the evasive driving. So I got to go to Borden military base, and they basically had an old residential part of the base that used to be military housing that hadn't been used in ages, and they sectioned off those roads and used it as a track, and they'd have all these obstacles all over, and you'd have times and you'd have to be able to run all the obstacles in your car and get back to the start under a certain time and without touching any of the obstacles. But because of that, like you go on this course, you meet people from all kinds of other bases that have all been sent there for the same training. So even outside of your trade, there's this network of everyone knowing each other. So all the gossip and rumors get everywhere instantly, right? The day I showed up to PT in the clothing I was issued in basic training instead of the unit-specific gear, there were people on the other side of the base hearing it within minutes. Like it was that fast. Everyone knows each other.
Oh no, it's a disaster. He's wearing the wrong clothes.
Oh God, not that. Yeah, but well, more importantly, he said no to leadership when they told him to go change. That was the eye-opening part, right? But it's bizarre to think that you can have an organization that in Canada, like we have 50,000 military, and how much it's still so interconnected and everyone knows each other, right? Or at least by extension, you know a guy who knows a guy who has some connection.
And then afterwards in social groups too, and networking, right? Like
how much of the
American Legion, all that stuff.
How much of the people working towards freedom are connected like that? A lot of people who were in the military who changed their mind and started working towards freedom. But I think those are few and far in between compared to all the other ex-military people.
The only guy.
Yeah, they're connected to people, but not of people with like minds. Like you, for example, like you might still have connections, but those people like maybe they'd be on your side against certain types of tyranny, but not against other types of tyranny.
Yeah.
I do like what's happening with the One Great Work Network, though. We are like, I'm seeing people like online who I saw in person, and like that's the way it needs to go.
Yeah.
Because none of this stuff will matter. All the tyrants in the world could disappear right now. It's not going to change the situation unless our consciousness changes.
Well, no.
What do you mean? You're seeing people online that you've seen in person,
physical events like two masks, or
and you saw some of the same people on the. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
So we can. Yeah, it's great to have a sense of community. But I'm just saying, like this, we need to create an environment where the seeds of tyranny won't even sprout.
Yeah, the problem is right now with everyone so obsessed with the cult of statism, if you got rid of all the governments right now, the first thing they would do is start making a new government. Okay, guys, we've got to organize and put a government together.
And if everyone's immoral, then anarchy is bad. Everybody's moral, then anarchy is good. See,
Right.
I had to admit that to a friend today. He's like, "Well, wait a minute. If there's no government, wouldn't that be worse?" And I said, "You know what, man? Actually, kind of yes, in that if the average person or if the majority of people are completely immoral psychopaths, then yes, it would be, because it would just become tyranny again. It wouldn't change."
What I would bring up there, though, is most people aren't immoral in the way that they're thinking there. Most people are a very petty immoral. They're willing to be immoral as long as they don't have to put themselves at risk or go out of their way and suffer for it. They're not willing to kick in their neighbor's door and drag him away and lock him in a cage, but they're okay with someone else doing that for them. In
Sure.
truth, in the same way I've pointed out, there's 72,000 cops in Canada, and there's only 40 million. And there's 40 million people. Like they're outnumbered something like 600 to 1. It's ridiculous.
Right.
But the truth is, if everyone was such a violent, aggressive, psychopathic person that government had to keep them reined in, that amount of police would not be able to do that. The only reason this system functions is because 99.9% of people, at the end of the day, even if they're kind of shitty, they mostly just want to go along to get along. They don't want to have a fight. So,
How do you explain that to somebody? I'm sorry,
Okay.
but how do you explain that to somebody who says, like, maybe they live in the United States, maybe they haven't ever experienced oppression or tyranny. Do you know what I mean? That's another problem there, is that a lot of people won't actually have a problem with it until it happens to them. So that's why I think, even though they may not be dangerously immoral on a everyday basis, they wouldn't prevent the oppression of their neighbors by another group.
Yeah, and this just brings up the whole idea of, if one suffers, we all suffer, right? So that's, sort of how, going back to the sort of onlookers conversation, why it was difficult to kind of solve that, because I agree with you, Curt, that, one shouldn't have an obligation, but it does affect the freedom overall.
and
So
it comes off as very callous, right? Like the idea
Right.
of seeing someone being hurt and choosing to walk away and not do anything. Certainly, it comes off to people like, "Hold on, is that?"
You know the situation when most of us do that is when we see someone getting pulled over by cops, and we
That's
choose to keep on driving and not be an auditor.
That's
Like,
a point that I made on Friday when we were having this conversation. Was exactly that. That's a situation
on
every day and never.
you
think
mean
about
on the chat?
No, in
the
our
typing?
group, our
No,
book club.
this conversation came
Okay.
back up in the ARC book club.
Okay.
So Dustin,
Is
Geri,
that
and I.
recorded content online, or it's just for
No,
you guys' sake?
that was just the book club meeting. We originally were supposed to be talking about initiation into hermetics, and we kind of got segued into that.
We covered a lot of ground today. I don't think we're going to have time for our other conversation topic at all. For some reason, we always are about to finish right when I think of bringing that other topic up. So we'll just save it for
the
another
alien
time.
thing.
It's
We'll
totally
start with
whatever.
that. Let's start with that next time.
My friend couldn't come anyway, so yeah.
Oh. Yeah, that's interesting. I'd like to learn more about that. Your alien friend.
I like to use the term extraterrestrial because alien it has like a
Negative
pejorative.
connotation.
Yeah. And actually, interestingly, if you look up the etymology of that term, which I'll do now.
To me, outsider.
Correct. Foreign, stranger.
The English
one
from
point-
Middle French, from originally what, Latin?
Yeah, hold on. One of my friends was also suggesting slave was another connotation in that, but I
Like, I
can't
don't
find
think
it in
foreign
here.
is necessarily bad or even strange. But they all do have a negative connotation. But I don't see what's like specifically negative about any of those terms.
Because typically those were the ones deemed less human and that was socially acceptable. It was very unpopular to have slaves from a same ethnicity in a society. They preferred them to be other, so that they
Yeah.
don't look at it like that could be my mom or that could be my brother. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
That comment, Darin, reminds me of something that I wanted to touch on before when we were talking about like the global social engineers perspective. Like, you know, if you talk to like Africans or like Haitians, the stuff that we're talking about, they know that they're being vaccinated to not procreate. They know that they're being fed plastic in their rice from the UN. We're in the Western world sounding like crazy conspiracy theorists, but people on the ground, they know that shit. They know that about the satanic occultists that run things. So
I heard
it's
that in
not crazy.
Africa,
Not
like
hearing them. We're not
the
hearing
whole
them.
continent of Africa had like a very low COVID deaths compared to all the rest of the world, but they also had like very low vaccination rate. Because like,
They copy the
Yeah.
yeah,
bullshit
Bill
because
Gates
they've
has
been
done bad shit in
vaccinated.
Africa with
Exactly.
vaccines before.
Real diseases
Yeah.
over there. They have immune systems, you know?
They
Like,
see the UN and the Red Cross coming
Go
and they run. They know better.
Exactly. They know. Yeah. And then also I wanted to also like touch back on the rap conversation. Like, you know, they're targeting, they know their target audience. They're trying to social engineer that group, you know, with that type of music to
And I remember in the MGTOW community, there was a content creator who was black, and I believe he ended up becoming a chemist. And at one point, he was talking about this, that all the way through high school and university, he had people from his neighborhood, because he grew up poor, criticizing him and asking him, "Why do you keep acting white?" So
Wow.
the fact that he
Right.
was taking school seriously and trying to study and go to university and learning chemistry, that was considered essentially like race treason. He was
Right.
like he was doing something wrong. It's okay to get out of the slums through like football or some other sport, but doing it through intellectual study, no, that's for white people. And
Well, and yeah, go ahead, Dirk.
just that's been pushed on them. It's a message that gets handed down, and people don't pay attention to these things.
epidysgenics.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and if you look at the birth rates, right, like the highest birth rates are in African countries, right? So how are you gonna you as a social engineer, that's your biggest liability, right?
Yeah.
Well, and wasn't it Margaret Sanger who started Planned Parenthood?
Right.
Correct.
There's
It was called something else, but yeah, it became
Yeah.
Planned Parenthood.
there's a quote you can find somewhere. I might go looking for it after this or tomorrow morning at this point, but she talks about deliberately making sure that there's an office in every black community to keep the population down. Very candidly, she openly describes black people as, in her words, being human weeds.
Right. Margaret
And
Sanger and the Indian Removal Act were the two main inspirations for Hitler. Andrew Johnson, no, not Andrew Johnson, Andrew Jackson, and Margaret Sanger. Those were the biggest and best racial hygiene promoters in history.
And it sucks too, because like the social engineers have created all these like dialectics to keep people away from the actual issues going on. Because like there is an actual agenda against, you know, certain communities, right? But then on the
Sure.
other side, like the Black Lives Matter, you know, thing became like this whole other weaponization against the populace. So it's like, there's just it's like this really
Intersectionality.
Yeah.
Intersectionality. It's carving us up instead of realizing
We're all humans.
yeah, we're all human, and like the main division is people who believe in the morality of slavery and people who don't. That's it.
So guys, we need to end like in the next 30 seconds because there's a 3-hour limit to some platforms. Any last words?
Government is slavery.
Respect and protect rights.
All right. It was fun, guys. It was nice talking with you.
Bye.
You too, all of you.
Bye.